All right, we're live. Welcome to episode 19 of my stream, my live stream. This is the show where I basically live stream while I'm working on my comics. So right now, you'll notice that that on the screen is like a not so like polished. Right over here is a not so polished version of my page 91 of of Two Stories book 2. So right now what I'm working on is like kind of a hybrid between thumbnails and roughs for the next book. I'm doing tighter roughs before I kind of hopefully like get all 120-ish pages mapped out, and then can kind of get the second book completed. So what is Two Stories? It is this book. This is volume 1, and I'm working on book 2, but book 1 is this book, which is a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. It's a pretty a pretty meticulously rendered and hand inked and hand lettered book that basically took a really long time to create. And let's see here. Now I'm basically working on book 2. But you can order this one on Amazon. So I recommend, if you're watching this stream or you're curious about my work, or you like indie comics, underground comics, in the kind of tradition of like R. Crumb and Spain Rodriguez and like the guys who did Zap and Raw, like Art Spiegelman, that kind of thing. This would be right up your alley. So yeah. So what I'm going to be doing tonight is working on thumbnails for page 92. I'm also doing the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, and today will be day, oh my goodness, day 42, I think, of the 100 days. I can't, it's hard to keep track. But I think it's day 42. And this is like the thumbnail, not the thumbnail, the script that I'm working from, and I basically highlight the areas that I'm working on of this script. See how much I have to get done. So of this script, like this much I've gotten done and mapped out, and then this is the final bits that I have left, which is pretty exciting. At first, it was pretty daunting to start carving away at these thumbnails. And now I'm starting to see a potential like light at the end of the rainbow there. So we'll see. All right. As usual, I feel like today it's really appropriate. I'm drinking my coffee, which is full of my delicious Magateers, which I feel is pretty appropriate during the impeachment trials. I'm going live from the U.S., and the second day of those trials has been really fascinating and disturbing, to say the least. And I feel good about this mug today because it's more appropriate than when I first got it. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get rocking on some art. Whew. And I'll probably just talk about different things that have come up or thoughts. But mostly I'm just going to try to knock these out. And if you guys happen to hop in on the chats, which may not happen because it's like 12 midnight. And I always do these streams kind of at irregular times. So we'll see how that goes. But anyhow, if you're tuning in, thanks for joining. And let's get into this. So I always mention this at the top. Oh no. My it seems like somehow my my Wacom's not plugged in. Let me see. It's awfully strange. Why would my Wacom be unplugged? Oh, great. Okay, there we go. We got the Wacom going. So now I should be able to get rocking. Okay, so as usual, what I usually do when I'm starting these things is I break my panels into 3 sections. And this is just so that I can hopefully like reference them as I'm mapping out my pages. And then I'll take a look at like my last panel. What is this? And I have a bunch of like previous panels also on layers just so that I can pull them up if I need them. So. Okay, so right now we have this part in the story where my wife and I, at the time she's my fiance, we're living in Huntington Beach and in this apartment, and right across the way is our neighbor who's kind of a little insane and who held me hostage and basically wanted to kill me. And then I escaped. We're in an apartment complex where it's divided by a simple spiral staircase, and it's a 2-story. So the only access out of there is that spiral staircase. We've gone to a friend's house, basically borrowed a gun so that we can stay the night and hopefully last till the morning when we're going to go to the police station to talk to a detective about it. So the last set of panels is me not being able to sleep, kind of sitting with the gun positioned on our couch, aimed at the door, just waiting for the neighbor. And now we're going to get into it. So it's a pretty intense part of the story. All right, here we go. And let's get into it. So I didn't end up streaming yesterday because I was frankly just exhausted. Like, we've been going pretty hard on for the last few days. My wife has some kids' books due. She's a children's book illustrator, and I feel like just something with I don't know. It's like every once in a while you sort of work really hard and then you get super exhausted and need to crash. So I spent most of that day recuperating and then polishing the script a little bit because I noticed a little bit of issues. And now I'm back on the horse. So it's like 12 midnight. I'm hoping to have this done in, we'll see, like an hour or so. What's up, Crimson Owl Comics? How's it going, dude? I'm guessing, are you, I would imagine you're heading to work. Really great comics, good horror comic reviews as well, and just overall good dude who often stops by the chats. So anyhow, how's it going? How's your comic coming, man? So yeah, like I feel better. Sorry. Ronnie was saying, yeah, he's getting ready for work. That's cool. It's always fun to see you, Ronnie, though. I was just explaining, like, yesterday was one of those days where I had a little bit of polishing up to do on the script on a section I didn't really think about. But other than that, I just pretty much spent the day crashing and kind of recuperating. So yeah. All right, so we're gonna get into this craziness. I do feel like every once in a while, and I've talked, like Corey Kerr and I used to do a show called the 48 Hour Art Check, which, by the way, now we're doing a show called Indie Review Show, which you can check out at irsagency.com, because it's the IRS, the Indie Review Show. And we just couldn't believe that URL was available. It's kind of awesome. If you guys are listening from somewhere outside the US, the IRS is the Internal Revenue Service. And so it was it's like our tax agency here. So it was just funny to me and to Corey that somehow IRS agency was an open URL. And we happen to have the acronym for ours lining up with the acronym for theirs. So we just thought it was funny to use that URL. And we're going to call like fans of the show like IRS agents and stuff. And I think that'll be cool. Got off on a tangent. So anyhow, like on his show though, we used to talk when we were doing 48 Hour Art Check, which was kind of like a creatives like AA meeting in a weird way, where it's like we were kind of checking in on each other and making sure we were making progress on our personal projects. But anyhow, back when we were doing that show, we used to talk about kind of straddling the line of burnout, where it's like you want to be productive, you want to be functioning at like 110%, but there's this like fine balance that you try to achieve as a creative so that you're not completely burning yourself out, but you're still functioning and being productive. And unfortunately, when you ride that line, it's like you have days where you're just going to crash. Luckily, I didn't like crash and burn. So, all right, here we go. Let's get into this. There's Corey. Corey was just talking about it as balance. And I think that's like a big fight. I also think, in a weird way, something I've been thinking about. Well, let me map this out while I'm talking. But I do think sometimes our culture is so hyper focused on like productivity, we can kind of miss the forest for the trees. Like being productive is good, but there are all sorts of things that have value that have nothing to do with like commercial productivity, or personal productivity. And it's like I'm a big fan of being productive and stuff like that, but I think sometimes we can almost take like the human being out of the equation. And anyhow, it's interesting. Hey Corey, welcome. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about the IRS show. I think the first episode went pretty well, and I'm going to be reading Graham's book for the next show, which I'm actually pretty stoked about. And then making the thumbnail and all that fun stuff. All of that I'm going to be doing probably on Saturday or Sunday, but I'm going to try to kind of cram most of that into it. I love that point. Hustle culture sucks. Being 100% consumer sucks. Yeah, I feel like I like making things. And hey, Frank's joining us in the chats. But yeah, back on that statement by Corey, I feel like yeah, it's like we can kind of it's good to have a side hustle. It's also good to like work on creative projects, but like if it's your own creative project and you're kind of in a similar boat to like Corey, like you and me, where it's like I'm not necessarily like making these comics for money. I mean, I'm happy if that's a byproduct, but it's like I kind of am doing it for more like spiritual reasons. Like I think it's an important story to tell, and I'm personally like happier when I'm creating. And oh, cool. Frank said, I think my copy of Two Stories gets here tomorrow. That's exciting, man. I hope you enjoy it. And then he also said, well, in that case, I'll ask for a refund. No, I like selling books. I guess my point is just like, in our culture, it's like because we're kind of a capitalist society, and I'm like, it's funny, even though I'm like a super lefty, like politically, which I know it's really hard to tell with like mugs like this, like where I stand politically, or I'm drinking MAGA tears. Um, but I mean, um, even though I'm like a lefty, I'm also like I actually think capitalism is probably the best system we have. Um, and I think personally, like I think there's things about it that are flawed and stuff like that. But in general, I think it's like the least flawed, the least flawed system we have. Like philosophically, I actually think it with all of its ills and problems, it's like I think it's one of the better systems our society has. That being said, like this is where the lefty part of me comes in. It's like there's some things that I don't think capitalism does well, and one of them's like, in a culture that's obsessed with production and consumption, like human beings can get lost in the cogs of that machine, and sometimes also like morality and ethics can get lost in the cogs of the machine of like production and consumption. So anyhow, totally rambling, but what one thing I think is important for us to remember as artists, at least for myself, like this is something I try to remember, which is like I have value outside of like what my market value is in life. Like so, like well, at my day job, like as an art director, it's like I need to make stuff that people want to produce and consume. Like I need to keep morale high so that we're producing. I need to keep what we're producing good on an art level so that it can be consumed and that people want to consume it. But that being said, like my value as a human being doesn't derive from those things. Like those things are great for monetary reward, but they're not necessarily my value. And when you're trying to do things like art, which I think can kind of at its uh, best times, like, wow, I'm getting lost in this thought, not getting my thumbnails done, but I do want to finish it up, at least the thought, because it is interesting to me. When you start kind of getting lost in that mindset of like productivity um, being your only value, like what you make being your only value, you can kind of lose track with your humanity and your own innate value as like a human being. Because I'm a believer, it's like we're made in the image of God, in my from my estimation and thoughts on where our value comes from. So our value has little to do with ourselves. Like it has more to do with the fact that we're made in the image of God. We have valuable souls, and that gives us like unending value. And so like just being can be like an act of worship or an act of value, just existing, which I think is really cool. So anyhow, why I got into that was literally like yesterday I was wiped. Um, I love this. We didn't come into this world to earn our value. We brought our value with us. Yeah, that's totally dead on. And that becomes more innately obvious when you have a kid, where it's like I look at my son and it's like he didn't earn he didn't earn his way in my life or in this world. I don't think he needs to earn value. Like he has value innately, like the second he came into existence. And like he doesn't I would hate it if he like grew up and didn't know that value, or let people convince him that his value was otherwise. um, and I think ethically it also has a real heady point, but I got to write this this next section. Corey, if you're up for a while, feel free to hop in the stream, but you might be working on something where that would be hard to do. If not, no worries too. True that, Crimson Owl. Yes, Ronnie, thank you. Sometimes when I ramble about stuff like that, I'm not sure if my audience is that interested. Not that I have like much of an audience, but point being, like, I can get pretty deep in the weeds with that sort of thinking. But for myself, that's a struggle because often, I love it. Okay. Well, I don't like that you have a sore throat, but I think that's a good call to, I appreciate you hanging in the chats though. Um, uh, so yeah, like, at least for me, that's a constant thing where, because I take pride in my art and what I do, even what I do for a living, um, it's a really good humbling act for me to try to remember, like that I have value that's outside of that, and that my value doesn't derive from that. And then also just like the final part, which is like, I'm not that important. So it's a weird thing. It's like you're both highly valuable and important, but also like I'm not that important. And I think that's important to remember. Like my book, like I really do want it to do well. I want more people to read it. I think it's valuable. I think it's good, but like the value of that book itself isn't going to derive from whether it has like insane sales numbers or not. And just as a reader, I know that, like, there's one of the things I'm excited about the indie review show with, and keep in mind, I've just been staring at a blank page while talking about this stuff. But, keep in mind, it's like, we've all read like books that sell excellently, like they're the like bestsellers, and you read it and you're just like, this is terrible, like this sucks. you know and so I'm like, I know, just as a consumer, like no consumer is fooled to think that value is simply in like popularity or in a market system. Like anybody who's like been on a beautiful trip where you like, look out at the Grand Canyon, right? And it's like, you can't really put like a dollar amount on beauty. You can definitely try, you can sell tickets, I guess. But the point being, like, when beauty is beautiful, it just is. Like, when a book's good, it is good. And I know art is like somewhat a matter of taste and stuff like that, but it's like, as an artist, I think it's really important for us to just understand that, like, the pursuit of beauty, the pursuit of truth, like, these things are important outside of like a consumption and production kind of model. It's kind of a higher thing we're aiming for. At least I am, and maybe that's lofty and ridiculous and stuff, but like that's something I was thinking about yesterday, and that's why, like, yesterday I didn't mind, I had to kind of remind myself of those things to rest, because I really want to get this book out. I want to hit that mark of like doing a page a day and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things I want. But I also really need to value like rest and beauty and goodness, and kind of accept that, like, sometimes it's enough to be like a worker among workers, like some, I don't know. So I'm rambling, but that's that's one of the crazy things that's been on my mind. How are you guys doing tonight? Frank, what are you working on? I'm excited. Frank's going to have me on the Tarako Artcast, I think on Monday. And that should be, I don't think it's called the Artcast. I think it's just the Tarako cast. But anyhow, I'm excited. I watched Corey's interview on there, and it was really pretty awesome. And I encourage people to check it out. Actually, Corey is inspiring dude. Wait, he's in the chats. Don't watch it. Corey's boring. I'm just kidding. So, sorry you have a sore throat. You know what's funny? I have a bit of a throat thing too. I'm hoping. Oh, nice. Frank says, I was finishing up page 7 for a mini. Man, you're just knocking out pages, Frank. You're like a page machine. No one can stop Captain Goggles. Monday at 6 p.m. Central, which would be, yes, I believe that's right. Because I think that's 4 p.m. Yes. I have it on my calendar, though. I wrote it down. There's a part in, if you guys have read the first 2 stories, you'll know I grew up I like almost idolized Indiana Jones, and especially like the Last Crusade movie. So I, as a kid, probably watched that movie like 500 times. Like we used to have it. It was one of those films we had on like VHS, and we'd just like watch it on loop. And one of my favorite parts of it is Indiana Jones's dad, who was played by oh my gosh, I'm gonna blank out, Sean Connery. It's one of my favorite roles Sean Connery played, but he's playing this like mad English professor, father of Indiana Jones, and he he's like a language professor who studies like ancient languages and is like obsessed with like the Holy Grail and stuff like that. But anyhow, there's a point where he says, I don't remember. And Indiana Jones is like, you don't remember? And he's like, I wrote it down in my diary so I wouldn't have to remember. And like, as I get older, the more I realize I'm like totally going to be that dude. Because if I don't write it down, I will forget everything. Oh, sweet. Cool. Ronnie finished the Victorian house that he mentioned the last stream. So shoot it over here if you want. I'd love to take a look at it. I'd love to see that rad Victorian house. I should pull up the Victorian house. My first graphic novel, not this one, not 2 stories, but it was a book called Jacob's Apartment. And the apartment itself was in an old Victorian. And I did that because they're just super, super cool. And I remember at the time that I wrote that, I was living in Long Beach across from like this old Victorian house that was just like stunning. So I was like, if I ever write a book, I'm going to have that old Victorian house. Okay. Now I got to actually focus on this. But yeah, Ronnie, send me that link. Okay. So this is an interesting line. I was sincerely, and I heard a little chime, so that probably means that you sent me the Victorian house. So right when I'm done blocking this out. Ready to if he wanted. I love it. I'm going to check that out, Ronnie, in a second. If you wanted to mess with my RCK. All right, Paul Pate is joining us in the chats. Paul Pate, very good artist. I wish I had your comic like right next to me, but I don't. But you guys should check out Paul Pate's work. He's a super talented cartoonist. How you doing, man? What are you doing up? Are you? Is it late, or I should say early in the morning where you're at? And then Corey, hey Paul. Okay, so let me get this blocked out, and then I'm going to pull up that thing, Ronnie, that you sent me because I'm curious. Okay, it's so fun to Oh, okay. Here we go. Oh, okay. I'm gonna pull this up and show you guys what Ronnie sent me. He's working on like a historical comic that I think bounces from like 1880 to 1980, and it's like a horror comic. But he had to draw an old Victorian for it, and I'll show you what he's drawing. Isn't that rad? That's pretty nice, man. I dig that. That's very cool. I mean, that's you know, but I was impressed by that. Oh, dude, 3:30 a.m. Paul woke up and couldn't sleep. I have days like that too. In fact, I think it's partially why like yesterday I didn't end up streaming because I had had like weeks of just like weird sleep habits. Like I'm usually a night owl, but it was just like on a different level. Um, okay, so but yeah, glad to keep you company whilst it's 3:30 a.m. Are you working on comics, Paul? What are you up to? What are you working on? Got to work at 8. Yeah, me too. I actually work at 8:30 in the morning is when my shift starts. So I squeeze in these little times to work late at night or early in the morning, and then head to work. But yeah, sleepless nights when you have to work are just it can be a beast. It can also be a conduit for creativity. Like some of the best work I've gotten done on my comic um, or comics are nights where I couldn't sleep. I got a lot done. It's kind of a weird thing. But yeah. All right, let's get into it. So, this one's going to be a front view comic called Slop. That's just awesome. There's a kid's book that I read my son. It's a whole kids book series called Elephant and Piggy, and um, they're like these two characters. It's great. It's a Mo Willems thing. Mo Willems is like one of my favorite kids book artists. He does like the pigeon books and stuff. But anyhow, in it, the in one of them, the character Piggy is making a thing called slop. It's like food that anyhow. So when I hear the word slop, I'm like, I think of that children's book. But I'm curious, what is that about? Corey's curious too. What's that about? All right, let's see here. Sounds like a good. I mean, that title kind of brings me back to like Raw, and um, I almost feel like people should call the guys who were working on like Raw and Zap Comics like Outlaw Comics. Because there's like a whole thing in like country music or in rock and roll where it's like an outlaw kind of underground vibe. And it's like when I read about the guys who were making like Zap Comics, it's like they were total degenerate outlaws. um, but yeah. Oh, interesting. Slop is slap bass hip hop. Okay, that's crazy. I didn't even know that. Is it like a is there hip hop I'd be familiar with, or is this like a newer form of hip hop? Because I don't pay attention. The only like modern hip hop I got really into is like Kendrick Lamar, who I think is brilliant. And he did like this album that's like one of the best I've heard in years called To Pimp a Butterfly, which is like this crazy like funk, like hip hop hybrid album. Like his albums are great. Um, but other than that, like I'm really out of touch with like modern hip hop. So, oh, okay, cool. I was worried because I also know there's like there's that Paul. Sorry, I forgot to show the chat. He was saying no, that's made up for the comic. That's good because I was worried it was going to be something like mumblecore or something that I don't really pay attention to nowadays. But that's awesome. That sounds hilarious and interesting. Okay, so here I'm gonna pull up my last panel, and then we'll get into this page. Okay. Oh, not hip hop, but R&B. That's actually interesting too. Uh, that sounds funny. Like that. I mean, that sounds awesome. But I don't know if it's humorous or not. But it definitely sounds funny. Like, I like the idea of like a smooth R&B with like slap bass called slop. Like that's, I don't know. There's something very very awesome about that. Cool. So it's about a revolution triggered by music. Dude, that sounds amazing and heady. So is this going to be a graphic novel, short comic? Uh, yeah, I'm curious. Paul is also like super fast. Like I mean, like just knocks out comics. He's like a machine. Okay. So let's do this. Speaking of super fast. So I think this is going to be the last shot before we kind of transition to a different scene. So that's why I'm doing a wide shot, because I'm hoping that this shot over here can be an establishing shot, which I think will be at the police station. So this one I want it to be head-on view. And this is going to be an interesting angle, but it's basically going to be of the rifle or whatever, but just straight on. And slightly foreshortened, I guess. Yeah, now I'm wondering. Okay, that actually would make more sense if the head were over here. Yep. This is all noodly nonsense right now, what I'm doing. um, Trying to kind of block out the figure, and then I want it to have the couch, but I want this to like actually be more of a dead-on shot. Yeah, that'll be good. And then we have like the apartment building here, which is going to be like that goes back a bit. And that's going to have, yep. Okay, that'll do. Short comic, I didn't write it. It's accompanying a compilation album, hopefully. Nice. Okay, get back to work. Yeah, exactly. I've been trying to. I It's funny, I was talking about sort of how as artists we derive value, and I got really lost in the conversation because it's very applicable to some stuff I've been thinking about, where I just think sometimes it can be very easy for people to lose track of like their own value outside of like what they make. Let me see. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Sorry, trying to work out that pose. Okay, so um but yeah, it's like I do think as creatives we can kind of get sucked into this kind of darker side of capitalism, where it's like it's like once again capitalism is pretty good for like running systems of commerce and like kind of creating like um, value for value transactions and stuff like that, but it's very easy for people to get lost within that system and kind of mistake their value for like what they're producing as opposed to like just the innate value they should have as a human being. And I always find that really interesting, where it's like where do we derive value, and then like obviously we as creatives like creating and making stuff, but what's that line between like enjoying what we create and kind of taking pride in our work and stuff like that, but also at the same time, like not losing the forest for the trees, you know, with it, and thinking like our own value. I mean, I do think to an extent, like what we do gives us like a sense of value and importance in the world and stuff like that. But also, we don't want to like lose our own identity in like this kind of narrative of like what we do defines us. Because like once again, it's like I love that. Corey was saying capitalism is a great incentive structure and it regulates prices fairly well for the most part, but it's not a religion. Yeah, it shouldn't be. But I do think like our society gets so lost in the consumption and production that we can kind of forget just like the important stuff, you know, like because I mean, at some point, you know, we're all going to be, this is dark, but it's like, you know, at some point, we're all going to be unable to make this stuff. At some point, we're all going to be like, you know, let's say I like lost my hand or something, which is like my worst nightmare. But it's a good like thought experiment for like ethics or something. But it's like, you know, if someone is born without like the capacity to produce in a capitalistic system. And keep in mind, I'm a lefty, but I'm very much like okay with capitalism as long as it's kept in check with like some more human centered things as well. But it's like, so here's the thought experiment. It's like you're basically born with no ability to really contribute anything to a market. You know, let's say there's just no physical way you can make art, you can make anything. You're just, you know, you're mentally disabled and incapacitated, and yet you have value and you have thoughts and you have, you know, a soul and humanity, but you just can't participate, like literally are unable to participate in sort of the structure of like making or consuming. Like, does that mean that person doesn't have value? And like that's where I definitely can't view like markets as part of a religion because I'm like I don't think people's value can. I can't morally say that someone has no value if they can't produce. You know, I do think what we make helps us see our value, and like it helps us express something that's deeper. And it also can be a really cool way to just make a living. but I just, you know, it's like I don't think our value can derive solely from like the value of. I think why I have problems with that idea, like people who just derive value by what someone can contribute, is not just that like thought experiment problem. Oh, let me see something. Sorry. Okay, cool. It's not just that this is really well said by Corey. Our society worships spectacle, excess, and the bizarre. Billionaires and geniuses are bizarre oddities. Yeah, and I mean, I think I'm not comfortable with the idea that that like everything has to be like a transaction, you know? Thank you, Paul. This is a very quick sketch, but I appreciate that. Paul said it was a good face. Yeah, I think that my problem with that is like I don't think value is always transactional, right? So, like, and I'm kind of thinking through this, but I think that's what bothers me about the idea of just even as an artist, like I'm a fan of art, and I will make the mistake sometimes of sort of finding value in what other people produce, and I can sometimes almost like take the art that somebody made and value that like more than the person themselves, just being frankly honest, because I love art, like I love good comics and stuff like that. So it's hard to like separate the value of the human being from the art, um, especially if it's like really good art, because it's like it's hard not to think like if I read something really brilliant to like feel like there is innately value to that thing, like and that's true, there is, but I don't think we can derive like a human being's value based on like solely what they produce and make, and also like based on a transaction where it's like, well, now this person has value because they have something they can offer me and I have something I can offer them. Like, you know what I mean? It can become really cold. And in a system like that, like, you leave out, swaths of human beings, like, the elderly or the disabled and stuff like that. So who I think it just would be very hard to make an argument those people don't have like some innate value just because they can't contribute to the same extent as like a younger person or a healthier person or a person who's not blind or whatever. So yeah, so anyhow, cool. Thanks for stopping by, man. Have a good day at work. It's a Thursday, so hopefully it's a good one, man. And he said, see you on the next stream. Yeah, you've been consistently showing up, man, to like almost every stream. I almost feel like I need to look back, but it feels like you haven't missed a stream. So thank you, Ronnie, for showing up. And thanks for sharing what you're working on with your comics, too. Let's see here. Trying to I don't like that angle of that gun. So I'm going to pull it up and get a little looser because it's not like I'm doing a final here. I'm just doing thumbnail roughs kind of thing. So I do want okay, I want this to be a little more convincing. So here we go. We're going to do something like that. And I think that's a little better. Okay. Yes. Okay. Oh man, Corey, you're getting into such cool stuff. Value is subjective to the situation in which the thing is measured. I have extremely low value in the NBA and extremely high value in my home. There isn't a single measurement of value. Yeah, agreed. And also, like, value, like I said, isn't always contingent on other people. It's not always about like what you can offer other people. And let's see. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree and all that jazz. Yeah, I agree. So people have market value that's outside. They have value based on transactions. Like even in your value to a family can be somewhat transactional, although I think it supersedes that. But I also think just by existing you have value, and that's sort of a heavy concept, but I think it's cool to kind of remember. Although I do like the existentialist kind of notion that we sort of earn our value and place a little bit by what we do. But I also think there's a reason I'm not like a pure existentialist, because I don't like the idea of like a lifeboat where we're kind of voting people off because they have no value. Like that to me just seems that seems like if you take pure unfettered capitalism and you put it into like a philosophy, that's kind of what it becomes, like a lifeboat where everybody who is perceived to have less value is like thrown out into the ocean. and that to me is not a good like that can't be my end all be all philosophy, because I just don't think that's how it works, you know. Anyhow, totally rambly, but that's kind of one of those every man's death diminishes me. Huh. Push that further. I'm kind of curious what that means. Existentialists aren't pure existentialists. It's a philosophy that argues with itself. Yeah, and like what was interesting was I used to be a literal pure existentialist, and that becomes problematic. Like the first issue of my comic sort of deals with some of the conundrums and problems of like unfettered sort of hardcore existentialism, and how it can kind of how dangerous it can be if that becomes an end goal philosophy. Anyhow, so nuance maybe, but what was kind of cool with that existentialism thing, because I still ascribe to a lot of the philosophy of it, but it was interesting to look into the history of existentialism and find out that the existentialists who, some of the kind of founders of the idea, either were like pure unfettered ones and they kind of off themselves, or they were driving at existentialism as like a platform to kind of jump off to a different philosophy from. So it was sort of like a driver to kind of get you to think critically about like about things, to sort of drive you to a conclusion. Like if this would lead to things being absurd, what would be something that would give value in that absurdity, and sort of drive you to like more kind of religious ends, which is interesting. So and then you have like so that's more like the Sartre kind of version, was like he was driving with a purpose and a direction, and it wasn't the direction of just existentialism, whereas you have like Nietzsche, and his existentialism was not really quite as driven in the sense of like the outcome. Like he didn't really know where he was driving, and sort of posited a few things in the theory that were definitely different than like Sartre's kind of drive in the philosophy. And that, I think, actually explains sort of how Nietzsche's life ended up, because he didn't it's like he kind of missed the forest for the trees. And this is why it's strange to do a stream where I'm talking about existentialism. I hope that's not boring the pants out of you, Paul, if you're still in here. Although Paul's a pretty deep thinker too. So let's see. As a part of mankind, a loss of that part is a great loss for me. Never send to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Ooh. Oh, nice. Yes. John Donne, No Man is an Island. Of course, was that countered by the I am a rock, I am an island? Wow, this panel I've been taking a little too long on, but it was interesting to work out, I think. I also wanted my head tilted more. This is some wonky anatomy too, but whatever. It's a thumbnail. If the I am a rock, I am an island is ironic. I adore this. I think I totally think that's completely got to be ironic. I mean, I think like the let's see. Paul said I made a big long comment about this, but I think you may not have seen it. Huh. Okay, let me go back in the comments. I want to make sure I address it. No, I'm not seeing it. I'm sorry, Paul. I don't see the comment. Maybe it wasn't sent. I don't know. I am seeing. Oh, maybe it's up here. Well, anyhow, regardless, I'm not finding it. I'm sorry, Paul. I am gonna make this headless guy a little bit more like this, and shrink his head down a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. I like that a little more. Oh, nice. Paul said, totally not bored. Yeah, I kind of figured it because Paul's a deep thinker. Yeah, so like, I think one of the things, yeah, it's like, well, I don't know, Corey, what you think about this, but it's like, I was really shocked, like, because I used to be a pretty hardcore atheist, and at that time I was like a pure existentialist, at least as I saw it. And I do feel like I kind of fell into that category of like kind of missing. It's like being in a car and not really knowing the direction that the car is supposed to head and was designed to head. I feel like that's kind of where I was at that time philosophically, where it's like I kind of got in the car and I understood it was moving, but I didn't really realize where logically, like where that thing was supposed to arrive. And when I actually read more, especially about Sartre, I was like, oh crap, like this actually had a, like it wasn't purposeless. It actually had a purpose in the idea of positing the notion of like purposelessness, which I think is really interesting. So I don't know. I find that stuff super weird and fascinating. Let's see here. Okay, so we're getting into this, which is going to have a kind of closer vision of this. Get this knocked out, and we're getting close to the hour mark, which is kind of interesting. So I'm definitely going to need to pick up speed on these thumbnails. Oh, Corey's jumping in. All that existentialism was meant as bait to bring the Corey Kerr on. How's it going, Corey? Oh, I probably shouldn't have put you on yet. I just noticed. Here, let me pull you. I'll pull you off stream just for a second, and you can pop on stream when you're ready, man. Because I feel bad if I like have you up on there if you're not prepped or whatever. So, oh, here. Well, okay. I'm gonna let you put yourself on when you're ready. I keep like wanting to do the host thing and pop you on, but I'm like also realized I don't want to like put you in frame till you're ready.
I think it's funny that you're like, I'm like, I can't talk. I have a sore throat. And you're like, cool, I'm going to talk about existentialism then.
It was bait for you, Corey. It was made to get you on here. I just had a feeling. I found it really fascinating, though. Like, I don't know if you had a similar thing, but like, I especially was like super. I mean, when I was an atheist, it was like more on the pure like Nietzschean, you know, like kind of
Nietzsche. He's an interesting one because I think a lot of people misunderstand him, and a lot of scholars actually say that a lot of what he was saying that gets taken out of context was actually they feel like it was originally intended as a parody of or a satire of what has become like Nietzschean philosophy. And so we're not even really sure if he actually believed a lot of the stuff that he was saying, because I think he was trying to point out the flaws of a lot of it.
Yeah, I actually think he did. And part of it is that version of existentialism usually, at least from what I've seen, ends with the same result that Nietzsche's life ended in. Like it's not like a like he did. Nietzsche kind of did the act that I think you kind of are required to do by that belief system. It's weird. It's like it's very disturbing.
Paul has a good comment here. I started completing my books and projects when I started thinking about myself when I was dead and gone. I was desperate to leave behind something of value. It started to wreck me.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to get comfortable with the fact that I'm not required to do anything, and that's okay.
Dude, Paul, that is so me, like that mirrors me, and not only mirrors me, like I get that, and not only that, I think that I fluctuate, and I think this ties into my belief system too, because it's like so it's weird, but it's like, you know, the whole history of the Old Testament, as corny as it is like a history of people who are kind of in touch with like their purpose and their creator, and then they sort of forget and screw up and forget, and then end up having to be reminded and then forget again and screw up and have to be reminded. And it's like so like the whole act of like the Torah is just to remember. Like the whole purpose of like that text is literally like, don't forget this crap, like teach generations so that you don't forget to remember, like, you know, these things. And I feel like I have that constantly with art, where it's like I will forget that there's value outside of what you're talking about, where it's like even releasing this book, it's like I have to remind myself, like, it doesn't matter, like this thing doesn't have to be a New York Times bestseller for me to feel good about it. And if it were, that still wouldn't give me that like reward, you know, that I'm seeking, because like I've had successes in art, and it's like every time I have a success in art, not like a New York Times bestseller level or anything, but anytime I've had like a modicum of success in art, it's not like I suddenly wake up and I'm like, I have value. Like, you know, like I'm not going to derive my value from it. Like I've been doing this long enough to realize, like, if 20 people, like if I walk into a room and 20 people love what I did, I'm still going to look for the one who hated it and be like, yep, they're on to the truth. The rest of these people have no idea. And so I think what you're talking about, Paul, is really brilliant, where it's like, we're not required to do these things. And yet we also have to psych ourselves out and feel like we're required. I don't know, Corey, if I'm rambling or making sense.
Depends. I mean, it depends on what you want. Like, I kind of feel the same way. I think human beings are wired towards seeking immortality, you know, and you look at like the ultimate goal of any human in the Greek, you know, stuff was to try to get ambrosia, become a god, you know, be immortal, like avoid getting destroyed by you know, hubris and whatever. And so I think the modern day version of that is like some kind of legacy. I think that's a very normal thing, but just like anything, I think, and I definitely would like to create things that outlast me. I think there's some really interesting power to that.
Yeah.
But that can be that can be kind of the death march that ruins your life, you know. And so there's this balance, and that's what I really like about existentialism is the idea of being present. The future doesn't exist and the past is fixed and only as relevant as you make it. And really the only thing that you have any control over is being present in the moment. And what a lot of people call mindfulness nowadays, I feel like is just repurposed existential practices. Like you're talking about mindfulness meditation, mindfulness thinking. Like if you read anything on mindfulness, you're looking at like, you can have a thought, but you get to ascribe that thought value or not, and so like there are some thoughts that you let flow by and some thoughts that you hold on to. But if you don't want the results of a thought, you don't fight it, you don't try to disprove it, you just let it flow by.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, a very similar situation is like the existential idea of facticity. Like the facts exist. That thought happened. Your past is your past. Your current situation is your current situation. But whether you let yourself define yourself by that, or whether you ascribe value to that or not, that's a choice that you make. And so even a lot of existentialists will say that existentialism isn't a philosophy. It's a mode of thinking that helps you like deal with life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, it depends. Like if it's like the Nietzschean brand, especially if you take them seriously, it's like more of like there really aren't facts. And so it's all about your perception and you're kind of creating your own reality. And that's sort of like a really heady, kind of dangerous road that I think it can take. Because I think like like all you have to do right now on social media is just pan through and see the damage that happens when people get rid of a semblance of fact checking or truth. It's like, if truth is subjective and it's just kind of dependent on like the observer, which honestly is true to a certain extent, but there are certain things that are truth. And not everything that seems like a capital T truth is true. Like there's a lot of ambiguity to things.
Yeah.
But the point being, like, if we kind of abandon truth and just base it on perception entirely, like it can lead down dangerous roads where suddenly, like, because I have this Magateers mug, or let's pretend it wasn't a Magateers mug like it is, but which I'm really proud of. I love this mug. But my point is, let's pretend this was like a Hillary tears or whatever. Regardless, like, it can kind of create like demonization of others. So it's like, because I have this mug, I must be like murdering children and doing like these horrible things and like worshiping the devil. And like, you know what I mean? Like there's people who like sincerely believe that about people who politically disagree with them. And they're willing to believe it because they've kind of bought into this idea of like, well, that's my truth. I did my research and my research is as valid as your research, which is so weird because it doesn't blend with people's reality. Like, anyone who's worked any job understands like not everyone does that job equally well. If you work like at a fast food joint, right? Like there's going to be a guy there who's like the best there at like flipping burgers, and like everybody else is okay at it. They can pass, they can get through it, but you have that one guy who's just the king of doing that. Like they do it excellently and they can train other people to do it, right? So
Yeah.
if like, and especially when you work in management, like half of what you're doing is like identifying like that guy is the burger guy. So when I'm training people, I'm going to have them mentor under him for the burger thing. And then this person, I'm just using fast food as an example because it's relatively simple structure. But, it's like this person's really good at customer service. So I'm going to have them mentor under them for like register and customer service exchanges, right? Like there's different people have different expertise, and like a good manager can acknowledge that and see it and then promote it, like, and kind of utilize like the different talents. But the point being, like anyone who's worked in a workforce, knows like you can't be the best at everything in a business or in life. And so it's like, if I need to ask about animation, I'm going to ask, like Paul Pate does animation, Corey does animation. I'm going to ask the guys I know who dipped into it over, my mom.
This is gonna sound
animation,
this is gonna sound like I'm disparaging certain groups of people.
Yeah.
I don't intend to, but Perry's stages of cognitive development are really interesting in what you're talking about. The stage 2, I just pulled up a thing that I have in class, but stage 2, multiplicity, right? And so there are 4 or 5 stages depending on how you look at it. And with age and higher education, people can choose. Everybody gains these abilities, but not everybody chooses to use them.
Mm-hmm.
But one of these is that without the authority to serve as arbiter, arguments appear only as opinions, and they all appear equally valid. Ambiguity causes discomfort and is not appreciated. We seek the comfort of our peers as we withdraw from authority because we understand that authority is fallible. So this is usually late teens, early 20s that this happens. And that's why you see people start to withdraw from their parents and start to, but that's just the same argument as like, well, that's just your opinion, man. And it's like, well, the fact of the matter is that multiplicity is a lower stage of thinking, because after multiplicity is when you get into more complex thinking, where you understand that certain people have expertise in certain areas and that certain people's opinions are more valid than other people's opinions, but it's subjective based on the topic.
Yeah, and it's hard because I think, especially if people are looking, it's ironic because it's like if people are looking for too much black and white, I think they're at risk for blurring the lines of truth altogether, strangely enough, because like that requires nuance and ambiguity in the sense of like I think why children go through that teenage stage is like, I don't know, I'm just gonna hypothetically, let's say my son becomes a teenager and then he like finds out like dad used to smoke, and then he's like, well, what do you know? Because you used to do this, like, and I've seen you do, like, I've seen you get mad, or I've seen you like poke fun at someone or something. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it is, it's like, seeing a flaw crumbles this black and white interpretation of authority, where it's like, if you're starting with the premise that authority is black and white, you're starting it with a dangerous premise, And so I think part of that higher level of thinking is like breaking that premise, which is natural. So that actually, to me, it's like, I agree with what you're saying, because it's like what I can observe is like, if somebody's prone to conspiracy, they're right in one extent. Like conspiratorial thinking is correct in a certain extent, because you shouldn't just blindly trust authority. Like anyone who's spent 5 minutes in this world should know that, right? You can't just blindly trust authority and just go, this is authority, therefore I trust it.
It takes us about 12 years to realize that, actually, not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's actually the first stage. That's the first stage of neurological development is that everything is black and white. Everything is right or wrong. Everything is good or bad. It's in that stage is called duality. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it is interesting because I'm seeing my daughter grow out of that.
Nice.
But she used to be very interested in like who the good guy was and who the bad guy was. And I realized that if I introduced you to characters that were morally ambiguous, that it was very upset. Like she just wanted to know if they were good or if they were bad.
Yeah.
And Paul's saying his son had that higher level of thinking when he was like 7. I wonder, Paul, if your kid reads a lot, because I'm noticing that with my daughter, that a lot of that kind of level of thinking started to shift as she began reading like books that were more advanced for more advanced for her. Anyway, but yeah, I think it's interesting to think about that. But the idea of perception of reality versus actual reality is interesting, because facts do exist. They are real, and our perception of reality is flawed and colored by the fact that our senses are imperfect. I mean, we have extremely inconsistent mechanisms to measure the world around us.
Yeah, and it's so that's where the ambiguity kind of comes in too, where it's like we know there is truth. Like, and I think that's the key is like, if you forget the kind of Descartes, like the reason that's such an important point, like the I think therefore I am, right? Like, if you forget that in a debate or a conversation, and you can't have that agreement, you're going to have a hard pressed time having a coherent conversation, because it's like there are certain axioms you have to accept before engaging in rational thought or rational discussion with people. And some of those things are, it's like there are certain constants in the universe that you have to accept in order to do science. And it's like, if you don't accept the constants, it becomes really difficult and problematic to even try to execute science. Because once again, you're not even like, if you're trying to measure reality based on a framework that isn't, in line with the constants of the universe, you're going to have a real hard time. Like if you forget that there's gravity and then you're trying to conduct an experiment that relies on gravity, you're going to have a hard time. And similarly, like with math, that's like, there's constants in math that are really important, and yet there's abstract numbers, and it can all kind of get crazy, but there's still like that specific constant you have to kind of fall back on as like a backbone for the whole structure of thought in that.
The problem with that argument, though, is the problem with that argument. Well, one, Descartes kind of contradicts himself, because preceding his theory and preceding his thought, he still existed. But then in addition to that, like gravity, we all accept it, but we don't really understand it. And so taking it as
that's that's kind of where I was driving.
Yeah, so taking it as a scientific fact is useful for discussions. Like if we're discussing something, we do have to like have some sort of like anchored stuff in the discussion, like an agreement on what English language words mean, or whatever, or it just spirals into nonsense. But the challenge is that even scientists can't prove everything, and if you dig deep enough into it, you start to see like, well, I had to invent this thing called photons because otherwise there's nothing that we can describe light with, because it sort of works like this and sort of works like this. And
yeah,
we're pretty sure that gravity happens because of spinning, but there are contradictory theories that say that gravity happens because it's bending the strings of the universe in gravity wells that cause things because of the density of matter, and it doesn't have anything to do with the rotation. And
But the thing is that the thing that's important about it is like acknowledging gravity. It's not necessarily like, and here's the other part that's confusing about it is like, and I think mathematicians are keyed into this more than like a lot of people. It's like acknowledging that there are mathematical truths. And so the flaw in math is not math itself. It's the human being trying to discover it. So right. It's like we don't invent equations, like we discover them. And it's sort of an important thing to realize is like, you don't you don't invent mathematical truth, you discover it. And sometimes your discovery is skewed. And so I think that's the part that I was talking about with like, it's important to have absolute truth, but understand that truth might actually be outside of ourselves. And so our own perceptions are very vulnerable, but that there still can be a truth that remains. And we can kind of edge toward it. Like, that's the whole pursuit of rationality and science and stuff like that, is not assuming that we are the arbiters of truth, but more that we are in a pursuit to try to find truth because it's there. And the confidence in the idea that it is there, and that, if we proceed rationally, we can get closer and closer to it, and I think I guess that's my point, is like, it's weird because it's like there is absolute truth. We are not necessarily the arbiters of it. And so it's like, that's the hard part. But I do feel like that's the premise you kind of have to accept before things get really nonsensical.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if there is no truth that you and I, Corey, could discuss and try to walk towards, then what is the purpose of discussion at all?
Yeah. And that's if you assume a physical reality, which I do. I think if you assume that there actually is a physical reality beyond, outside of us. Like if I leave a room and nobody else is in that room still exists on its own. Like it has matter and energy and things like that. Because there are theories out there that everything is constructed, or everything is, but yeah, so I agree.
Well, and that's why that like Descartes thing is so important in discussion, where it's like, it's important to at least accept the premise that you exist, because there's a lot of people who even go further from that and be like, I don't know, maybe the whole thing's a projection. Socrates played with that idea for a bit too, but I think even he abandoned it for a while, because it's like, it's a fun thought experiment, but it doesn't necessarily result in a lot of measurable action, because it's like,
so the issue with it is that it's really problematic, because if I'm correct, which I believe I am, and there is a God, and there is a right and wrong, and there is a moral center, and there is a reality that is 100% true, and that's the way God views things. And then my goal in life is to try to best I can align my perception with God's perception, right? Then society as a whole, right, functions, and I have a purpose in it, and there's a right and a wrong, and there's good and bad, and there's, like, there are rules and behavioral constants that I should strive for as an individual. Whereas if I believe not an atheism, because I don't argue the theory that if you don't believe in God, you can't be a good person, because it's obviously stupid.
Oh yeah, that's a horseshit theory. Some of the best people I know are atheists, so it's like,
and you can still have a moral compass regardless of your belief system. But if you believe that life is meaningless for whatever reason, if you believe that everything is meaningless because you're a nihilist, or you believe that everything is meaningless because it's all a computer, system that we're characters in somebody else's dream, that actually degrades the fabric of society down to the point where why don't you just kill somebody if you want their ice cream cone? Because it's meaningless. They have no value. You have no value. There's no anything, and you should just do whatever you want. Whatsoever you can get away with should drive your actions. And so
it's a tough one with that too.
Sorry, I was just going to say the problematic nature of that is that even if I'm wrong, I will still live my life in such a way that will be a benefit to those around me.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is like, it's fascinating, because you can't have a discussion about like words like truth, right, without kind of going outside of science, and more into the realms of like philosophy and ethics, because it's like, and I think this is a flaw that I used to fall for when I was all about science. And I'm still all about science. I'm a big fan of science. I think science is probably one of the most beneficial things people can pursue, and it definitely, like, if it comes to me having faith in Corey, you telling me some remedy, and I've got like my arms turning blue or something, like I'm gonna trust a scientist or a doctor over any friend. Like, like I will, I actually think I put a lot of faith in science. So it's like I have no problem with that. But there are things that go outside of that. I love what Paul was saying too. Paul was just talking about getting a friend request from a girl who went to college and meeting in a philosophy class. And I think those are fun classes, man. I actually kind of miss those classes, because one of the things I love about a good philosophy class is usually every student in the classroom is uncomfortable and pissed off within the first week. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think they're teaching philosophy well. Because like the whole thing is like to kind of, you kind of have to get uncomfortable. But the thing that I like about so the mistake I used to make was the idea of like trying to insert ethics or an ethical argument into a scientific framework. And I've seen people like grasp at straws to try to kind of rectify that and make a science of ethics, but it's a real hard pressed thing to get out of what the conundrum Corey was just describing, where it's like, most interpretations of like a scientific framework for ethics kind of rest on like ethics being whatever the community decides is right. And so those philosophies like that are kind of based on like a societal ethic can really quickly collapse on itself with like the most basic ethical thought experiment. There's quite a few of them, but like one of the thought experiments that's pretty common in like a basic ethics class or a philosophy class, actually, these questions are pretty common in both, is like the idea of like, so if morality is based on the society, and definitely there is a semblance of that, like there is social morality that exists. There's the idea of like what the society deems is acceptable or not is definitely something that the society deems is acceptable or not. But you end up in these weird thought experiment problems where if like during, it always goes to Hitler, unfortunately, but it's the easiest example of this. It's like if during World War II, like Hitler had actually won as opposed to lost, and succeeded in purging the world of an entire race, and no detractors or people who disagreed with Hitler survived, then we end up with a society where all these people who think that Hitler is moral. Does that make him moral? If like everybody on the planet thinks what he did is moral, would that make him moral? Now, to those people's perceptions, maybe, but I think ethics go a little deeper than just people's perceptions. Like, I think it's justifiable to say, like, no, he would still be immoral even if everyone on the planet thought he was moral. So there's some kind of semblance of ethics that goes outside of the scientific, and I think.
Well, and I also think it's important to differentiate between morality and ethics and legality, and like those are it's a big Venn diagram, but they're different realms.
Yeah, agreed. I also think it's really important to reiterate, Corey, what you were saying too. It's like this is more of a philosophical problem where it's like I don't think like I have friends who believe in the societal version of ethics where they think that ethics stems specifically from what a society deems as most ethical, and so it's in flux. And they're uncomfortable with that truth, and they're also some of the most moral people I know. So, like I said, this isn't about necessarily practice. It's more about like, can a thought hold up to scrutiny? Like, can it rationally hold up? Like, not so much like how does it look in practice. I don't know if that makes sense. But
yeah.
Ooh, give me 2 seconds. I gotta get a refill of my tears here. I have a pretty rough thing going with my throat too. I wonder, do you think we got the virus, Corey? It's such a weird time. Like, if I start coughing, I'm like, do I have it?
Is a sore throat part of the symptoms?
I don't. I think your big worry is with a fever.
Yeah, and taste and smell and respiratory stuff, but I haven't necessarily heard sore throat. So I'm hoping not, but I'm not going to class tomorrow anyway. I kind of wish I had canceled class, but instead I was like, we're just going to do it remote. And now I'm like, well, I've got 2 90-minute classes back to back, followed by a 90-minute class an hour after that. I don't have the ability to speak for that long. So it's anyway. Paul says sleep isn't in the cards because this is really interesting.
Oh, I hope so, man. I hope we're not keeping you
with us.
Sorry, what?
We should just have Paul jump on with us.
Yeah, dude. Paul, I don't know. Well, I don't know if you have access here. I'll give you the link real quick if you want to hop on. If not, I also don't want to intimidate people to like coming on.
Oh, right. You made a comment. Now you have to come on the show.
But I do like the idea of it being kind of a show where people can stop by. It's like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where it's like you can kind of cruise by and say hello. Let's see here. Paul. And I have no idea if that's going to actually happen. Let's see here. Boom.
Oh, man.
Okay, sent the link just in case. Now, give me 2 seconds because I'm going to step out for like... oh, hang on. Let me finish this panel. I should at least power through this panel before I have my little 20-second break. I also feel like I want to change the costumes up a little bit. I sometimes will make that mistake with a character, and sometimes that's really valuable to have characters always wear the same outfits. But when you're doing like a slice of life auto bio, it's probably good to not have Charlie Brown always have a squiggle shirt on. As much as that's great for branding and building fan bases.
Charlie Brown movie. My son watches it all the time, which is the only reason why I know about it. But they actually make fun of that.
Where he wears I was impressed by it, actually. I thought it was really good.
I just love that. Like he gets ink on his hands, and then he rubs his hands, and he rubs it in the pattern of of the splotches on his shirt. Anyway,
that was the thing I liked about that, and maybe I'm wrong about it, but I felt really nervous about watching that, and I mainly watched it because of my son, because I have a real and I think most of us who do comics or art like have a pretty high reverence for Schultz because he's just amazing. And he's sort of like a genre defining cartoonist, and especially if you've seen like the Peanuts strips from like the 1950s, it's like you start seeing, you know, like all these cartoonists derived so much from him. But let's see here. But like what I find is what I found about it was like I was actually surprised, like pleasantly surprised. I felt like they really honored the I don't know. Maybe that's silly of me, but I actually felt like they
I
did a lot of justice.
I don't have the same reverence for the Peanuts that you do.
Mm.
And that might be just my ignorance, but
Yeah, you gotta read more Schultz. Like the 50s version
I've
is
read a
just
lot.
so baffling.
I don't know. I read them a lot as a kid, and I don't know. My main thing is I think what he was trying to do is interesting, but I think he missed, because he's trying to make it like relatable, like everybody feels like Charlie Brown, everybody feels like, they're beaten down and whatever. But really, I just think, and maybe this is just viewed through today's framework of whatever, but those kids are so horrible to each other. Like, I don't know. I'd rather have people be nice.
Well, they are horrible, but I think like that's one of the beauties of that strip is like it's not unrelatable, because it's like it, and it's funny. I remember as a thought experiment once with one of my friends, we broke down the structure of the Charlie Brown characters and then applied it to all sitcoms and realized like most sitcoms with groups of people are just doing Peanuts. Like it's this weird thing, but like if you think of the different tropes of characters, anytime you're seeing a group story, heck, I even think Mandalorian is pretty much Peanuts. I was just realizing that just now, because I'm like, Mando is, yeah, it's interesting. So I think that trope, like the story structure, is very powerful, is my point.
Who's Mando?
Mando would be Charlie Brown.
Okay.
He's pretty much trying to kick the football and constantly fails. It's
So who's Lucy then? Because Lucy is the one that is like setting him up to fail.
yeah, I don't know if there's a Lucy in that story, so maybe that falls apart. But you can definitely see it in like the structure of like How I Met Your Mother, that TV show, Friends, like almost any TV show that has a group of people, like a large group of people. Mandalorian probably falls apart a little bit. I'd say that's more Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I'm just saying, I think I do feel like there were some things, and I think the kids are pretty relatable. Like, even though they should be nice, but I don't know. Our kids,
I wonder. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, yeah. Anyway, it's fine. I guess, and this, you and I have different desires in our storytelling, I think, and I think this is probably another thing with that is like Schultz is kind of a, hey, Paul's here.
All right. Hey, Paul, how's it going, guys?
A slice of life type guy, even though it's exaggerated and everything, but I just find it so boring.
Peanuts?
Yeah.
I have to ask though, like, in all honesty, have you like checked out like the collections that Fantagraphics has released, like the 50s ones?
No, because I read them every Sunday as a kid.
Okay, I'm telling you, just as a tip, like check out like the Fantagraphics collection. Like they have these thick books. You can get like the early ones are the best. So like if you get like the early 50s, you might be surprised is all. Maybe
you might have to bring that up on the show, because I'm not sure I'm convinced. I still inherited a where is that, the collected works of Buck Rogers. Something that I actually am interested in. Jim's here too. Jim should come on too.
Break it?
Yeah, Jim, you're welcome to come on as well, man. It's a party. Let's see here. I'm gonna send Jim a So, Jim, recapping everything, we got into a heavy discussion of existentialism and how people have value outside of their utilitarian contributions in a consumer society.
There's a societal argument for morality, and that you have to assume that you exist before societies can work. So we've got 2 calls.
Get this Lujan going on. We got what?
I think Paul froze and then added himself back in. So now we have 2 Pauls.
Okay.
Really? Sorry, guys. Yeah, it cut out on me. Something happened there.
No worries, man. I think I can.
My head is huge.
Okay, I'm gonna kick the one from the studio, and hopefully that doesn't kick the other.
Yeah, I'll just try back. I'm still here.
Okay, yeah. Boom. Okay, good. So we got rid of the double.
Yeah,
Jim, if you want to hop on, I sent a link, but I know it's like also 2 a.m. So if you don't want to hop in, welcome to the Sanity Club. But okay. So give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna refill my my coffee and stuff, and you guys feel free to discuss. But I don't know, Paul, do you like Schultz? I feel like I think Corey needs to give him a shot from a more current perspective, because I remember reading Schultz as a kid and it didn't connect to me like it does.
Peanuts?
Yeah.
Talking about Peanuts? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was never really, it never engaged me all that much. I mean, kind of reminded me of Little House on the Prairie, or stuff like that, and those that kind of stuff. Just I think it's great.
Yeah,
but it's just not for me.
Yeah, as a kid, it wasn't for me, and I think I connected like more with like Calvin and Hobbes,
Right.
But Same then here. Like as an adult, I've been stunned by looking at the early work of Schultz, because it's like it's really deep and heavy. It's not like
and I can see the value in it and appreciate it for its quality, but yeah, it was just not. It didn't entertain me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. What I was surprised by too is just like what a good draftsman he was.
What you working on, Corey? Oh gosh, this thing's cutting out on me again, is it?
I can still hear you.
Corey, what are you working on?
Animating some stuff Jim drew for the thing. We're getting close. I'll bring it up.
Am I cutting out again?
No. You're still there. Yeah, so I'm just going through some of these assets. So I've got Jim's animatic right here.
Throw Jim in there. Boom. Look at that. I'm going to remove my brand on here. So because that works great for my solo. But
wow. Did you do that to your hair on purpose?
2.5 minutes. And make
so
a new
many screens.
60% of the screen.
Hey, Paul.
Good morning, Jim. Good evening. Good. What is it?
Be right back, dudes.
I'm going to show you guys something.
3 of us
Josh is going to need to see this too at some point. Paul, I don't know. You might have seen this when you stayed over our house, Paul. I don't remember. Here it is.
What is it?
Where is it?
What is this?
Oh man, it's a guy. I gotta like zoom back.
You got merch, Jim?
No. Oh, it's backwards. There we go. But it's just massive, so you have to. Damn. Okay, here it is. It's worth it. It's worth it.
The payoff is going to be worth it.
It's worth it. I don't know if you could see it or not, but it's my Tupac blanket.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thug life.
It says thug.
I'm not going to judge you, man. Only God can judge you on that blanket.
Oh, All right, now I'm ready to ride on my enemies. Oh,
That's awesome.
That is how Jim rolls.
You guys are some late night guys, man.
Yeah, there's no rush either. We're just and no.
I gotta work
on.
in about 3 hours.
Really, Paul?
Yeah, I just woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep.
I'm off tomorrow, so.
Oh man, how did you luck out?
Yeah. I'm rocking a PowerPoint presentation tomorrow.
Well, I see Unchained Wayne.
Yeah, right?
Yes, Corey, I did 2 songs for it tonight. I edited the whole thing. All the footage that we have is done, and I did 2 songs tonight. And so all I have to do now is just kind of tweak stuff a little bit, But told you, man, the editing's quick. Editing's very quick.
For anyone who might, pop by at like 2 a.m, explain Unchained Wayne real quick for folks.
Unchained Wayne is somehow Jim snuck into my house and planted a chip on the back of my brain that caused me to want to do this project.
It was a curse. It was a spell and a curse.
You hexed me. Yeah, it is drawn by Jim and written by Jim, mostly voiced by Jim, though there's some other people. And then I am making stuff move mostly.
I like it. I caught you guys' first episode of working together, and I like how you guys work together. The chemistry between you. Like Jim, you have your way of doing things, but then Corey was like, "Oh, we could do this and we could do that." Da da da. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a testament to our friendship.
So, is it the Old Testament or the New Testament?
I don't know if I'm Cain or Abel.
I always call this different honeymoon years. That's when I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I thought I could keep up with Jim.
What doesn't kill Corey will make me stronger.
Exactly.
That's true.
Do you guys want to see a page of what I'm working on?
I would love to see a page of what you're working on. Can you share it?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Share.
Awesome.
There's a little thing at the bottom that says share, and I think that'll get you there. Yeah, dude, I love seeing other people's art whilst working on this stuff. It keeps me juiced and interested.
Let me see if I can find it.
I need input to.
Paul, are you up late or are you?
No, I'm up early.
Up early.
Yeah, I gotta work in 3 hours.
I had a couple nights like that in a row. Oh, here we go. Boom, add to stream. Let's pull that up. Nice.
Pretty sure.
Is that Prince?
Yeah, so these are the 4 mothers. The 4 mothers of slop.
I love it.
Wow.
As in like 4 fathers, but FORE mothers, like MUTHAS.
What's slop?
Slop is like a type of music. It's like so the 4 mothers are Prince, Betty Davis, Jimi Hendrix, and George Clinton.
Betty Davis?
Yeah. The R&B singer, not the one Betty Davis eyes, not the actress.
I'm not really familiar with Betty Davis. Wow.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, this is a slop rally. This is kind of
a slop rally. That's amazing.
Wait, did Prince know he did slop?
No, Prince didn't know he slop because I didn't make it up, but the guy who wrote it made up the word slop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a type of music.
Okay.
All right. So, can you talk about this project, Paul? Like, what is this? So, it's a comic about slop. But what is Like, how'd you end up doing this? Is this a collaboration? Like,
yeah. A guy named Dan wrote it, and
Nice.
Dan writes for a couple different magazines, Soul Jones, and then he writes for. He always tells me about it. Not Acid Jet. What's the name of the other one? Darn, I can't think of it right now. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Anyway, he's a writer. He lives in London.
Acid Reflex.
Yes, the magazine Acid Reflux. Gosh, what's the name? Anyway, he knows all these musicians through because he covers them for these magazines, and so he's like working with these musicians to compile an album, and then this is going to accompany the album. Does that make sense?
Wow, yeah, that art is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, it's looking awesome, dude.
Thanks. Yeah, this is like a splash page, that'll be the left and the right side of the comic. So
it's interesting. I had a whole chunk of like crazy nights where I couldn't sleep, and then yesterday was like my day of rest where I was like, holy crap, I need to actually slept for like a very good amount of time. But it was after like a week or so of not sleeping. And it's interesting because I find that I get hit with those a lot when I'm in the middle of a creative project. Even 2 stories, like half of that book was probably done at like 4 a.m. It's crazy. Like when you can't sleep, it's like, I don't know if it's healthy or not, but it's like, for me, that's kind of like half the time where I'm like, well, if I can't sleep, I might as well get some pages done. Like.
Yeah. I used to do that like crazy. That's part of what I was telling you guys. It was wrecking me.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to be a lot better about it. But I can't do as much now as much as I used to. But I had to just accept that.
I noticed, Paul, at 2 a.m., I look like I should have an accent and talk like about film. And it is a language that you do not speak.
Either that, or you just got to like put some cotton balls in your cheeks and be like,
So, Corey, Josh didn't tell you, but he wants you to animate 2 stories.
That's true. My thought is like, we'll make a feature-length film, like I'll provide you with the art, like, in fact, I'll just send it to you, you can scan it and clean it up. And
very excited about that. That sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be like an equal contribution there where it's like, I will provide you with the book, and then you do all the audio, the editing, the animation. Actually, it's fascinating because like I am not a good collaborator. Even with music, like I play in a band, but it's like a specific group of dudes that like I grew up with. Like we were in bands together when we were kids, basically like teenagers, and then we just conveniently, like the main songwriter, co-writer, and then myself, like we live. I just realized I'm making this guy into my character. This is where like working at 2 a.m. is not so.
Well, I want to hear more about your band, A Specific Group of Dudes.
Yeah, so we
or SG,
great name,
as we call them, us fans.
Yeah, we're a slop band.
Group of dudes opened for Side Curtis. I heard.
Side Curtis is great. Yeah.
But yeah, so like the funny thing is like even with that though, like I've tried playing with other musicians, and I there's something about like that group that I can collaborate with, but I'm not a real like collaborative. It's funny too because like as an art director I collaborate, but I like on my own personal work, like I'm terrible at collaborating with people. Like I'm like a nightmare with personal projects.
Hey Josh, I just realized specific group of dudes. The
that is a hilarious.
The initials are as God.
Sorry, what?
The initials are as God.
Oh, dude. Okay, so Jim, that sounds like a fake band you have to make. It'll be like a boy band, and they'll be called a specific group of dudes.
A Christian boy band.
A Christian boy band? That's great. That's great.
Wax Poetic. That's the name of the magazine.
Wax Poetic was a side project with, oh my gosh, what was her name? It's like a trip hop band called Wax Poetic. That's
Sylvia Wax was right.
Waxpoetics.com. I'm gonna go to it. I think that's the name. Let me see.
Now I want to look up Wax Poetic because I think I remember them like in the late 90s.
So Paul and I got together earlier tonight and we said, let's log on, distract Josh from his work, but leave Corey alone so he could finish my work. So dude, so far it's been great. It's working.
Okay, so I wasn't kidding. Like Wax Poetic is a band. Nora Jones, like her first recordings were on there. It was like this weird trip hop hip hop collaboration. Wow, and I think like DJ Shadow did some work with them. So worth checking out. Just randomly throwing that out.
Well, the magazine I'm talking about is Wax Poetics.
That's awesome.
Is it a surf magazine?
What's that?
Is it a surfer magazine?
No, it's about music.
That's Sex Wax Poetic. That's the surfer version of it.
Yes. Has everybody in this group surfed except for me?
I do not surf. I am a really bad swimmer, and I think there's something wrong with my body because I will sink. Like it's weird. Like I remember as a kid too, like taking swim lessons, and they, how you like learn how to like lay on your back and stuff. It's like for some reason my rear end will just start going I can't like unless I'm paddling, like I can't just float like most people.
I was in a cult. I am in a cult, and the leader, the what do you call the godlike figure, was Casey Kasem, and he always said, "Keep your feet on the ground." So that's what I ascribe to.
Are you a Kasemite?
Yeah, Kasemite. That's the name.
Kasemite is.
I keep reaching for the stars.
You guys are the ones that refuse to believe he's dead.
That's right. That's right.
Casey Kasem shall return.
Mm-hmm. He's temporarily in the airwaves.
So, like I've studied a little bit of Kasemetics, and I'm just kind of curious, like, what is your take on the revivalists? I'm trying to think of like are there different theological schools of Casey Kasem?
There's
the Kasemites.
The top 40.
Yeah, there's Kasemites. There's the Kasemarians.
Kasemarians.
There's what else? Oh, there's a ton.
Kasemetics.
Oh my gosh.
And there's 40 commandments, like Paul said.
Yeah.
There's 40. Yeah, the top 40 commandments.
And if you ever
number 5.
Yeah. You have to buy all your sacraments from the Circle K.
And of course there's the offshoot, the Shaggalites, because he did the voice of Shaggy. So
did he really do Shaggy's voice?
Yeah, he was Shaggy's. Yeah, he was Shaggy. Hey, Swoop. Hey, Swoop. Coming in at number 5.
Zoinks?
Zoinks coming in at number 5. The group from Boston.
Oh man, that's lovely.
So anyway,
Josh, what is your knowledge on the group, the Cars?
I really dig the Cars. I actually still feel like just what I needed. has like one of the best intros ever recorded, like that little dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun.
Oh yeah. That just when you're in the car and that comes on, crank it
Did
up.
Did you ever think that Rick Ocasek sounds like Ben Orr? Like they kind of sounded like each other?
Like
I used to
who?
have trouble determining who sang what when I was a kid.
Oh,
Yeah.
huh.
I always thought it was all Rick Ocasek, which is weird. So maybe I just have a bad.
No, Ben Orr sang "Just What I Needed."
Really?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. I proved my point.
Yeah, I can't tell the difference, man.
That's number 21 in the case of my
Right. Yeah, you're definitely not going to be.
Yeah, I think
you have to get better than that if you're going to be the case of mine.
For the cars, though, like, so here's one thing that bums me out. Like, I still think, like, Weezer Blue Album era was like an excellent band, and then Pinkerton I still think was like a brilliant album. And then their third album, when Rick Ocasek started producing them, was just basically like them doing the Cars. And then they just got really crappy. So it's like, I don't know whether that's Rick Ocasek just destroying the band or whether that was Matt Sharp leaving the band and making it terrible. So there's a part of me that like loves the Cars. And then there's a part of me that feels like maybe Rick Ocasek murdered Weezer.
Wait, did Rick Ocasek produce Buddy Holly and all that?
No. He produced the Green Album, like their third album. And that's why it sounds like a Cars album.
But he didn't produce the early ones?
Nope. Not the Blue Album, or I'm trying to remember who produced the Blue Album.
Who else did he work with then? Because he was before he worked. I mean, I remember early on he produced somebody else's album or something that was really big.
Rick Ocasek.
It's working, Paul. It's working.
You are totally distracting me, dude. If you get me down music holes, I will
mission
forever
accomplished.
One of the things I miss about albums, like buying actual albums where there were like notes and stuff, liner notes,
production credits.
I remember going through these little connecting the dots with bands, like, which would just
Suicide in 1984.
Patti Smith.
Cars, Patti Smith. I Run Right Back from Caddyshack.
Oh, he did the Blue Album.
Yeah. See?
Oh, what a trip. Okay, well, that's a great album.
Weezer.
Twice on your show, I've been right about music. Twice. With the bullets.
Well, that one was pretty amazing.
And the car.
He did the Green Album too. Huh?
Yeah, the Green Album was the one I didn't like because it just sounded like the Cars, whereas like the Blue Album I felt was good. But you know what's cool? He actually produced Nada Surf's High Low, and that's one of those bands that like that song Popular like sucks so bad that I think that a lot of people like kind of passed by that band, but they have like amazing albums. Like they're really anyhow, that album's really good too.
Were you ever a Jane's Addiction fan?
Jane's Addiction, I mean, their early stuff was interesting. I definitely not a big fan of like what they became.
Yeah, it's kind of weird what they became.
Yeah. Did you like Jane's Addiction?
Not really. I mean, yes, they're like you said, the early stuff, like nothing shocking. Like there's some really good moments on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like it's weird what they became. It's like it's a strange era of rock and roll. It's almost like Hot Topic meets Vegas.
Yes.
It's kind of weird. You know who I've become a fan of as an older boy?
Tell me it's Neil Diamond, and I'll back you 100% on that.
No, we saw Super Diamond, the Neil Diamond tribute.
No way! Wait.
Years ago.
Tell me about this.
It's funny you say that, Josh. I became a Neil Diamond fan later in life.
I'm good with Neil Diamond. I never had a problem with Neil Diamond.
I hated
I did when I was young.
My mom like loved those albums and used to put them on like on the record player and stuff, and we'd all be like, "Oh, shut this off!" And then as I got older, Especially if I'm on a road trip, I'll literally just put like Neil Diamond on Spotify and just play his whole discography and just be like, yes, like it's amazing. It's so bad, but great. It's like, it's just genius.
As an old man, the older I get, the more I kind of appreciate the Talking Heads.
Oh, dude, yeah. Okay, so like I really like pretty much everything Scott Aukerman does. I just think he's funny, and like Comedy Bang Bang's great and all that. But like there's a show he did with Adam Scott where they dissected every REM album, and it's humorous too. So it's like they'll kind of mispronounce band members' names and stuff, but they still authentically go through the whole discography of REM. And they called it Are You Talking REM Re-Me? And then they did Are You Talking U2 to Me? And then they also did Talking Heads. And I can't remember the bit with that, but I think part of why they picked it was just the naming convention would sound ridiculous. Like, Are You Talking Heads? But it's really cool. It gets like really in depth into the Talking Heads, and then it's also like, you know, this riffy kind of comedy at the same time. But yeah, like Talking Heads are great, man.
Yeah, and actually, early U2 was really. I thought they were really good early stuff.
Yeah, like I'm definitely not a fan of the later stuff, but the early stuff was like, yeah. I mean, like, you know. I think that was like pre-metal and pre-punk rock, like when I got into that.
Well, it was post-punk rock. They came around like 78 or 79.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of at the tail end of like the first wave of punk rock.
Oh, no. Not like when they came in, just when in my life, when I discovered them, it was like, I think I bought like Boy and War. Like,
wait a minute, you discovered U2?
Yeah.
Hold on. Hold on, Josh. You must have been 6 years old. How did you do that?
I wasn't even born when I first discovered them. But yeah, no, like I just found like I do feel like they were probably a gateway that got me into more like underground stuff, you know. Like I think,
gosh, you don't even want to know about my musical taste, man. It's like I'm like the little kid that got into his sister's lipstick and put her heels on as a child. I didn't literally do that, but it musical equivalent. Really, I mean, I got into my sister's records as a kid. That's why I love Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the movie, so much, because my sisters had it. As a little kid, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I heard the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton's Sgt. Pepper's. I am not even exaggerating. I heard that album before I heard the real Sgt. Pepper's album.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how I discovered Sgt. Pepper. I heard the Aerosmiths come together before I heard the Beatles come together. But I told you about the White Album, right?
Yes, I still can't get over.
Yeah,
I'm not going to buy the justification to Aerosmith at all.
It's so good. They're come together so good. I don't know. I'm not the only one that thinks that.
I just don't. I mean, you're definitely not alone.
Have you heard Michael Jackson's version?
Yeah, It's all right. It's all right. It's okay. But I like Aerosmith because it's just dirty.
I can't.
Can't get on board with the Aerosmith version?
I can't get on board with anything Aerosmith, and it might just be my age. Really? But I just like I cannot connect with that band.
You don't like Train Kept a Rolling or Last Child? That's a great song.
Permanent Vacation was the.
No, see, I fell out of. I like.
Yeah, I mean that's like that. That was I like that. That's more Casey Kasem style.
Yeah. I do feel like
this is funny. I'm like if it ain't on the radio, I'm not listening to it.
Going down another notch off a pump.
Spent 10 weeks at the top, and now it's fallen to 37.
Bring out a gun.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I'm not hardcore.
So you know me, Josh. Okay, like as a youth, I got into the B-52s.
B-52s though, like, see, I feel like that's a different different game because B-52s are great.
I love them. They were one of my favorite groups. Yeah.
And I still like I will argue to death with somebody who doesn't like Rock Lobster because what the hell's wrong with you? Like that's
I know Whammy. They have an album called Whammy, and that's one of my top 3 albums of all time.
I love it.
So I got to them. I got into Duran Duran when like Rio came out. Like I was like those were my first like as a let's see. I must have been when Rio came out. I was probably 10.
Yeah.
And so like I immediately I grafted on B-52s, Duran Duran. What else did she have? My brother had Liv Newton-John.
Oh man, I love Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah, if you just watch Jim TV, you'll see me all of my childhood stuff.
I do love Jim TV. It's a lot of fun, and it's a good reminder of like stuff that. that
I was watching it, Jim TV, and Blondie came on, and I was I didn't realize how gorgeous she is.
Oh my God, Blondie was my first crush. I love.
Wow.
So let me tell you this.
She's really great.
Josh, I was in. Do you know what CCD is?
CCD?
It's not OCD. Yeah, catechism.
That's the oil in marijuana, right?
Yes.
CCD
oil.
oil.
Like Catholic school. Like it's like
catechism, yeah.
Sunday school, but on nights they train you to make your like first communion or confirmation or whatever.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like a Catholic youth group.
Yeah, I used to go to those. I used to go to those classes.
Okay.
And one of the nuns the nuns didn't wear habits; they wore regular clothes. But one of the nuns that I remember this very clearly.
I hope this isn't going to become the plot to Sister Talk because
we started singing. No, so she brought.
I don't know if I told you, but I went to Catholic school with Lauryn Hill and
Whoopi Goldberg. So she wheeled in this TV with a giant like Betamax looking VCR, and I was like, "This is going to be great. She's going to show us something. This is way better than reading." and she wanted to show us like the how disgusting rock music and everything is.
Wait, was this the Satanic Panic video? Because I might have seen the same thing.
No, even better. And again, I'm 9 years old, whatever, when she did this. She played. All I remember. The only thing she probably played some other stuff, but the only thing I remember is she played the Heart of Glass music video by Blondie, and I was like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire
life." Like so Catholic now.
You have done the opposite of what you set out to do because I'm in love with this woman now.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's the best she's ever looked. And and like when I see that video now, I just think back to that moment. Seeing her, like, oh my God, like I like this. I'm not evil, am I? No, but
I think my first crush as a kid was Wonder Woman, like
Linda Carter.
Yeah.
Everybody liked Linda Carter.
I couldn't explain it.
I never found her that attractive.
You know what? I think she's okay, but never. Yeah, she was never. And it's weird because I usually like brunettes, but you know.
I don't know what it was. It was like I think it's just because I was so young and I didn't even know why I liked watching Wonder Woman. I would just be like, this show isn't great.
Right.
The plot is terrible.
But I feel funny in my pants.
Batman reruns, but I will watch this and I don't know why. It's really interesting.
I think as a little kid, I liked blondes because I liked Olivia Newton-John. I liked Suzanne Summers when she was on Three's Company.
Nice.
And as an adult, I like brunettes. I think, yeah, that's probably it.
You know what band is great from that era of Blondie and stuff is like the Go-Go's were pretty excellent.
Oh yeah.
They're
Beauty and the Beat's a great album. Yeah.
And like a lot of people don't know the punk rock roots.
Our Lips Are Sealed. Wasn't that a Fun Boy 3 song or something? Or Specials or I don't know.
That I can't remember, but wasn't she a member of like the Germs?
I don't. Who? Jane Wiedlin?
No, the lead singer.
Belinda Carlisle?
Yeah, she was a member of the
Germs with guys.
Let's see, Belinda Carlisle. Now, see, I'm curious.
Wow, I don't. You know what? I'm not familiar with the Germs, so maybe.
Wormhole.
So she was like a punk rocker before she went all like pop. And let's see. Now I'm kind of curious. Early Ventures. So she was in the Germs with Pat Smear.
I didn't know that.
She was the drummer.
Belinda Carlisle was?
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
So she was she was
know
like
that.
roots punk rock.
Wow.
Yeah.
She was a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which is pretty rad.
I've been binge listening to Shaka Khan, Rufus and Shaka Khan.
Oh yeah. Young Shaka was really pretty. I thought
yeah,
super good looking girl.
Yeah, she's
Paul,
great.
I was going to ask you, Paul, when's the first time you ever heard Prince or saw him? What's your first memory?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Where I grew up, he was, it was all around.
Was it at the slot?
Yeah. It was, early on, or 80. I mean, right away.
I Want to Be Your Lover, that song?
I don't remember the song but he came out in 79 or 80, something like that, and the kids from my school were into it right away.
I'm gonna share a memory with you. My cousins know. I always bring this up. Okay, so my cousins, the Maggios, they had the first Betamax machine I'd ever seen in my life as a kid. I thought it was incredible. I think they had Kiss Meets the Phantom on Betamax, or they recorded it or something. But it was incredible. I'd go over their house and say, "Can you play a tape?" Like, that's how early this is. But I remember they had a video that had music videos on it before MTV.
Oh, okay.
Way before MTV. But it had music videos, and I remember the music videos. I Want to Be Your Lover.
Oh, really?
Was on there, the music video for it. And that's the first time I ever saw Prince. And I thought, he's impossible. Like, a guy can't look like this. And like, his hair was all straight and he looked like a woman, but he sang and he played guitar. And I'm like, it just blew my mind. Like, nobody does this. Like, I thought he couldn't exist. This is strange. But I liked it, but it was strange. But I remember that, and I remember Gary Newman, Down in the Park, the live version. And that just stuck in my head as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Photo had a song called All Us Boys, and that was on there. And what else, if I could remember? There was a couple of other ones. Those ones I'm having trouble remembering, but I remember those three. Those were the three on there.
What year did MTV come out?
82, I think, maybe 81. Okay. 82, I'm gonna say.
All right. Yeah, because we didn't get cable until probably 85, I think.
Paul, Google it. Google that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna say 82. And Video Killed the Radio Star was the first video that played by the Buggles, featuring Trevor Horn at number 16 this week.
1981, August of 1981.
Aha.
So
interesting.
I think Prince was on there pretty early, right?
Oh yeah. So Josh and Corey, you guys, I know you guys are youngins, so you guys are too young to remember when MTV, when playing a brand new world premiere David Lee Roth video was like a big deal.
I remember that. I mean, like, that's not
Dave TV.
As a kid too, I remember really young, like that song, like Jump, was just like on repeat for like ever. But what's weird is, I'm probably, because I was like kind of a teenager in like the 90s, so it's like I think I had like I looked at sort of the generation. So my sisters were like a gateway into cool music, so like they turned me on to like the Smiths, and I think they're how I got into like U2. So I'd like borrow like their cassette for like live.
Yeah, same thing happened to you as me. Exactly.
Yeah. But I do remember always being really baffled like by like David Lee Roth and just not really understanding it. like in the sense of just, it just didn't make sense to me because I was like, it's just so over the top. And then like looking at, you know, like in retrospect, I've gotten into Guns N' Roses, but growing up, like I even hated Guns N' Roses because I was just like, this is just like crappy, like just over the top, like commercialism. Like it felt really fake. And then like, you know, you had that whole kind of explosion in like the early 90s where it was like, you know, like Sonic Youth and like all these who, you know, like all these kind of side bands that kind of weren't like, this whole underground culture kind of exploded in the mainstream. And that's when I was a teenager. So it's like that, like a lot of that stuff I had to discover later on. And I was remember really judgmental of a lot of it younger. And then like older, I was like even Prince, like I wouldn't listen to Prince when I was young. Like Prince, I kind of rediscovered like 5 years ago and was like, this is awesome. Like Prince is great. Like really killer.
My best friend in high school was a Prince fanatic. He kind of looked like, it's so funny because he looked like Prince. He's Creole, so he looked like Prince. His hair and his face and everything. And we used to joke with him, but he was a Prince fanatic. And
was he the inspiration for your
No, he was the Prince of Pomona is a white guy. No, my friend Keith is black.
I swear to God, I know Prince of Pomona. This kid I grew up with when we were younger, his name was Ron.
No way.
Yeah, his name was Ron Gibson. He's a real guy. Like this kid I grew up with.
Ron.
And he kind of looked like this guy. And he moved away to Sioux Falls,
Idaho.
South Dakota or North Dakota or something like that. Came back a few years later, and now we're teenagers. He's like 16, 17, something like that. And he loves Prince. I mean, he dresses like him. He got his hair done up like him and everything. Yeah, like just like Purple Ron.
Yeah, we used to go to the record store, and I got to know all the flips. We'd find the rare stuff, like the flip side. You know, okay, Horny Toad. It's a flip. You know, I used to know all the flip sides to all the Prince singles too. I can't do that anymore. Wow. But yeah, I used to know. But we were like deep cuts. You know, and so. But you know, it's funny. In high school, I couldn't share my love of like Duran Duran or anything new wave with my friends because they were all into like funk and rap, and like Prince was the most new wave I could get, you know. And it wasn't them telling me like I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the confidence as a teenager to do that.
Yeah, I relate to that because in high school, like when like early high school and definitely junior high, I remember getting really into punk rock and then hanging out with a bunch of kids who were into like first metal, and then we all got into punk rock and like wore the uniforms. There's pretty much a uniform, right? And it's like I remember feeling like pressure, like where at that point I wouldn't admit to like liking bands like REM even, because I'd just be like, that's just too like mainstream, you know. And so I'd feel like, you know, if it's not like you know, like Agnostic Front or something, I can't talk about it, you know, like. And it's funny in retrospect, just realizing like how, I don't know, I wonder if that's something about that age where it's like it, because I don't think any of my friends put that on me. I think it's similar to what you were describing, Jim, where it's like I just didn't feel like, for some reason, I didn't have the confidence to just be like, you know.
Yeah, I went through that with Kiss too when I was a kid. Because as a little kid, I was a huge Kiss fan, but my school was run by the Gap Band and Kool and the Gang, and that was like the acceptable music to listen to. And then on the last like month of school, somebody brought in some kind of Kiss item, and all those kids that loved Kool and the Gang were like, "Oh, this is cool!" And I was like, "Son of a bitch!" I was like, I could have been this all the time, like.
Oh, that's funny.
I remember that distinctly. Like I remember thinking, "This is bullshit." Like I hid this. I literally hid my Kiss stuff at home. Like when friends would come over, I remember I panicked one time because my friends that never used to come over. They came over, and I had a Kiss puzzle or something, and I like hid it and like that because I was embarrassed.
You know what's interesting? Like, so Kiss is another one. Like, I know, like, Kevin was like super into Kiss as a kid too, and it's like, I think that's a generation. Like, I think I missed that by like maybe 4 years, because it's like I definitely didn't have that connection to Kiss.
Yeah, I feel that way about He-Man and G.I. Joe.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Whereas like G.I. Joe's like right at like that's dead on to like my whole thing. He-Man, I never connected.
Kiss was big when I was a kid. What else is like the big thing? The Pittsburgh Steelers.
You guys, I'm like such a, what do you call it, a pleb when it comes to music. I mean, I'm not, I'm not, I can't play anything. I don't have I'm a real amateur, even my taste in music. So like when I was a kid, there's the black kids and the white kids, and the black kids liked all the R&B stuff, and the white kids liked Kiss and, heavy metal stuff. I liked Huey Lewis and the News.
Hey, dude,
that was my favorite group growing up.
I will not trash Huey Lewis and the News. I think they're excellent. I love Huey Lewis and the News.
But I think when I got old, like in the college and in my 20s, I started listening to music more.
Huey Lewis and the News. If I hear Huey Lewis song, it makes me feel good.
Yeah, but I mean, who says their favorite band is Huey Lewis and the News?
Jimmy Kimmel.
Really?
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's a huge Huey Lewis fan.
That's funny. Okay.
What's funny too, that show I was talking about that goes into like the discography of the Talking Heads and like REM and U2 and stuff. They did have one episode called "Are You Talking Huey Louie to Huey" or something? But they had Huey Lewis on and went through his discography because they all loved Huey Lewis as kids. Like, still kind of like, I actually really like unironically like enjoy Huey Lewis. Like, it started as kind of ironically and definitely Back to the Future related, but it's like there's something about it that's just super fun, and I don't know. I think they're great.
But then when I got into my 20s, I started listening to music. I don't know, like as deep as I can go to be into music. Yeah. And then I realized that I really was drawn to all the R&B stuff, and
like while I respect her very much, I like the type of music I was never. It just didn't do anything for me. Was like Celine Dion and stuff like that.
Yeah. Who's
like
the worst is totally Michael Bolton.
If I saw her in concert, I'd be like, "Wow, she's great. That's great." Yeah, but just, right. I'm not as much. I like writers, bands who write their own material and play their stuff. Like that's what I'm really into. That, not just even David. Like David Bowie's so good that he could have been a Celine Dion, just a person that sings other people's songs. But look at how incredible he is with the stuff he created. So I like that part of it. Mm-hmm. The Beatles changed. That's one of the things the Beatles changed music. They made the singer-songwriter big, because before that, if you look at music before that, it was people doing other people's stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
the Brill Building in New York. There was they had a whole building where Carol, was it Carol? Not Carol Kane. She's
Carol Baskin.
Carol Baskin. Carol Baskin.
By the way, I'm sure this has been mentioned to you, Jim, but when I watched that documentary, the whole time I saw it, I was like, "This is a Jim Lewan cartoon."
Oh, I know.
It felt like a real life.
I haven't seen it. No, maybe I'll watch it.
I watched it. I'm like, I should sue these guys. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, you have like that whole Stax scene where it's like you have these killer songwriters like releasing like super like obscure records, and then in the meantime, like also just writing these hits for other people. Even like Neil Diamond was like part of that system kind of like on its end days where it's like, he's writing like half the Monkees songs.
Yeah.
Not getting any credit for it. And I don't know. It's just
Smokey Robinson was big like that. He wrote a lot of songs.
Smokey was in that scene? I didn't know.
Well, he was the Motown version of that. I mean, he wrote.
Yeah.
He was the big writer.
Yeah. By the way, all in my opinion, in all music, greatest voice, single voice, Marvin Gaye.
Money.
Marvin Gaye is unbelievable, dude.
In my opinion,
he's one of my favorites.
But best rock voice, it's a tie.
Eddie Money,
Marvin Gaye. No, Marvin Money. Best in my humble.
Oh my gosh, that's a character.
It's a tie between John Lennon and David Bowie.
Best voice, really?
No, rock voice, like for
voice
in the rock genre.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
John
but
Lennon.
I also give there's a who's really an underrated rock singer is Mick Jagger.
Huh.
Mick Jagger, like young Mick Jagger, man.
Well, he's known as being a front man, but when you listen to the way he sings things, his timing and the way he does what he does with words, his really
pronunciation's interesting too. He does like weird plays on pronunciation.
I don't think of John Lennon as a great voice. I mean,
oh, dude,
I'm not arguing with you at all. I just don't. And I'm really amateur, so I'm not.
No, I said John Legend. No.
We shouldn't even be in this discussion, really. But
I feel like the thing I like about Lennon is like he brought the like tough as nails crap to the Beatles, and it's like. So it's like, McCartney had his like kind of sensitive vibes, and McCartney had a little bit of a rocker in him, but it's like when Lennon would kind of get in there, he just brings so much attitude. Like
I think Lennon's was kind of effortless. Like he just had a good sound. But you know what though? Anytime, and I know you're not knocking Paul McCartney, but anytime somebody when they put down the sugary sweet Paul,
I like sugary sweet.
It is really like salt and pepper. It's like Lennon without McCartney is not the same. And McCartney without Lennon is not the same. They really did complement each other really well.
Yeah. So what song, if I want to hear Lennon's great voice, what song?
It's not great in the sense where he's showing off and showing. It's just a tone he had. So I don't know. Go listen to my favorite Beatles song, "Happiness Is a Warm Gun."
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Or I'm so tired. That's a great one.
Oh.
Or Revolution Number 9. Go listen to that.
Okay. Give me a minute. No, I can only listen to one at a time. Revolution Number 9.
No, I'm joking, Paul.
Oh God. Give me a song. Which one was it? Happiness.
Oh yeah, Happiness Is a Warm Gun. That's my favorite.
Who's saying?
Now we've come full circle. Because Happiness is a Warm Gun was written because they saw a Charles Schulz book called Happiness is a Warm Puppy.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we've come all the way back around to Peanuts.
There's also a really good cover by the Pixies of that song. It's really good.
That's the only musical contribution I can have in this conversation.
Corey, was it Puppy or Blanket?
Puppy.
Wow, I always thought it was Blanket my whole life.
I think Linus. Yeah, I think you're right.
I have a revelation then. It might be Puppy.
Well, I have read the Happiness is a Warm Puppy book to my kid.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know. I would always assumed it was that one.
No, Linus actually said Happiness is a Warm Gun.
Right, but there's the
I also like from the same album. Feel like who sang "Why Don't We Do It in the Road" though?
Paul McCartney.
Okay, so that's Paul at his best. Like that's a great one for like anybody who doubts McCartney. Anyhow. I love that one.
Yeah, I grew up a Beatles nut as a kid. Well, that's directly from all of my brothers and sisters. That's the one group they all agreed on.
Yeah, I definitely had that. I grew up with my dad was super into what is oh my gosh, now I'm gonna blank out.
Don't say QAnon.
Yeah, he was super into like this idea that, you know, there were these liberals drinking adrenochrome. Wait, what? No, I'm just
A cabal of pedophiles.
no. See, I'm blanking out on his name, but he was like popularized because of the Burton movie that I'm blanking out on the name of too, because it's like
Bill Bacharach. No, I'm just throwing names. The Burton movie. Oh, Michael Keaton, Harry Belafonte.
Harry Belafonte. So I grew up like it was weird because before that movie, like my dad was just obsessed with Belafonte and would like put those albums on.
Like calypso music and stuff.
He was also really into Charlie Parker and then I'm forgetting the
Miles Davis.
No, not Miles. He didn't listen to. I think he did listen to Miles, but for some reason he didn't play that a lot growing up, which is sad because like I would have loved to like hear. It would have been fun to like grow up listening to like Bitches Brew, you know, which is such a good album. But no, the guy who did like the Take 5, Dave Brubeck.
Oh yeah.
He was like really into that. So I grew up with like this weird kind of, and then like I said, my mom was obsessed with Neil Diamond.
Well, if there's one thing you know about me, Josh, it's my deep love of bossa nova.
Bossa nova is great.
I love bossa nova, and I don't love it ironically. I love it genuinely. So I really do. Bossa nova is great. Astrid Gilberto, go look her up. She's the best.
Wait, I think I've seen her. Does she kind of does the
girl from Ipanema?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like the videos are great too because they're usually in like some smoke-filled bar, you know.
Yeah. Actually, George Michael did a song with her.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I really liked it. I can't.
Great. Also, really great album. Frank Sinatra and Juan Carlos Jobim, I think his name is. It's the only bossa nova album. Frank Sinatra became such a big fan of this guy that he invited him in, and they did a whole album together. It's remarkable. It's so good. Frank Sinatra sings bossa nova so well. So
I'm interested. Let's
bossa
see
nova is my thrash music.
Nice. I feel like
Wait, Josh. In high school, did the kids used to argue about who was more metal or who was harder metal?
So it's weird because by the time I was in high school, and it's a weird thing for I think anybody now to understand because it's like music's all over the place and there's more fusion between like, but it was very tribal. So like the metal kids. Like I was into metal in junior high, and then by the time I got to high school, I was like really into punk rock, and like metal and punk was like a really weird kind of crazy dichotomy. So it's like I liked metal, but I wouldn't admit to it.
Were you part of the Aussie wave?
No, I think what got me into metal was like Slayer, you know, and then like early Metallica, like when it was all thrashy.
So they're all after. Like I remember Bark at the Moon. Oh, what was it? Diary of a Madman and all that stuff. Like I remember everyone had those albums as kids.
Yeah.
And I used to be like, am I the only one that recognizes this is like totally satanic?
So it's a trip because it's like, yeah, like, but by the time I was in high school, like, I wouldn't like the metal guys and the punks. We didn't really like. We'd hang out and like smoke in the bathroom or whatever, you know, like stupid stuff. But we didn't like you didn't go to their shows. Like they didn't come to our shows. It was like this weird. It's almost like Star Trek and Star Wars used to be, where it's
so
like
I got
there wasn't a lot of overlap back in the day. Where it's like you were really into Star Wars, or you were either a Star Wars geek or a Star Trek nerd.
So at my school, it was the era was more like I remember in my senior years when stuff really started getting categorized, and it culminated with like the top of the pyramid that you couldn't get more real and more hardcore was suicidal tendencies. Like even all the metal guys would be like, yeah, they're good. Like everybody agreed, yeah, they're the top at that time. But Slayer was until then was like the kings of like they would win any argument. They're the hardest. That's when the mosh pit started happening. Like my senior year.
Yeah.
I was like, hell no, I'm not going in there. I'm gonna go home and listen to my bossa nova.
Mosh pits are so dumb though. It's funny too because it's like there's some really good documentaries of like because my favorite kind of punk is like DC punk. Like I love like Fugazi and Minor Threat and like Ian McKay and like just that whole scene like in DC sound.
Don't.
But it's a trip because it's like there's a couple documentaries on Minor Threat and like the kind of because they were sort of playing like right when it all started getting really violent. And then a part of why they even started playing different styles of music than like hardcore punk was just they were fed up like going to shows and seeing people beating the crap out of. That's like they were just like this sucks. Like it shouldn't be like that, you know.
I went to an X. The only punk show I've ever been to is an X show.
Oh man!
And this big giant guy kept trying to push me into the pit. Like he was standing behind me, and I had to do like a Jerry Rice, like whoop move, and he fell into the pit. And then I see. I ain't going. I was not going in the pit. I don't want to. I want to watch the show. I don't even like dancing at concerts where you're supposed to dance. I'd like to watch the show. I'm a fan of musicians and watching the bass player, watching the keyboard player, watching the drummer. You know.
Yeah.
I really like live music in a small setting where you can see the instruments and stuff.
Bossa Nova
being played. It's amazing to me.
My favorite venue in Los Angeles has always been like the Troubadour, which is like just because of that, because you're up close and it's like, and it gets a little rowdy, but not like crazy. And I just like the sound because you're like right up there and you can kind of see everything. It's always way more fun. Like one of my favorite concerts there was like when Frank Black was doing his solo stuff. And he used to play the Troubadour all the time, and like going to see Frank Black was awesome there.
The Troubadour is great.
Yeah,
I've been there once. I say it like I know it. Like, oh yeah, the Troub.
I used to go there a lot as a kid, like and then like like early 20s, we used to head up there because there was this whole like I was really into At the Drive-In. Because we went to This Ain't No Picnic, which was like this big event that Sonic Youth started a long time ago in like Riverside or something. And so they'd have all these indie bands. And from there I saw Drive-In, and then that got me into like going to LA a lot because At the Drive-In broke up, and then there was like these Mars Volta shows that were happening all over that we'd kind of track and stuff. That's fun.
Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Sonic Youth, and Soundgarden in that order were really big for me.
Dude, like Alice in Chains Dirt, I will not trash that album. I don't think it ages. Like Alice in Chains I think are excellent, but I don't think they age as well.
Sap is really great. That's Sap, the top of the food chain for me. That's their acoustic album. And they were the first ones to do that, too. That was before Unplugged.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Sap was really good.
Yeah. There's a certain sound to it, though, that it's cool. It's interesting, and it's still good, but it like definitely sounds like the era it was made, you know? You know how there's like some bands that like you hear the recordings and they kind of hold up like still, like they sound timeless? And then there's
the Bay City Rollers.
What's up?
The Bay City Rollers.
Bay City Rollers, like them.
Hey, Betty Davis.
Corey. Yeah. And I am kind of asking this in a stereotypical Mormon question. But
Okay.
the Osmonds,
I'm aware of them.
are there still Osmonds making music, like a young generation of Osmonds making music? And in the Mormon community, are they a thing?
I have no clue.
And are they nice people?
And I know you've never heard Crazy Horses by the Osmonds.
My dad was a punk rocker, and so we didn't listen to the Osmonds growing
Your
up.
dad was a punk rocker?
Yeah.
Wow, that is so. My dad was a big band 1940s music.
Before I got into my own music, my dad was listening to, he listened to classic rock as well.
Uh-huh.
The Cars and the Police and stuff like that. But then he was also, he's the one that introduced me to the Ramones and stuff like that. So Dawkins, which isn't so much punk as kind of early metal. But
you're Mormon, Corey?
Yeah.
Okay, and you live in Idaho, right?
Yeah, now, but I grew up in California.
Oh, okay. My sister and her husband, they lived in Logan, Utah for a while.
My brother lives in Logan. Yeah.
And I went out there to visit.
That's just a great city. Sorry, just Weapon X, Logan. Just derailing conversation.
Beautiful there, man. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing there.
It's kind of a little known secret that you can live in East Idaho and it costs nothing, and it's like one of those beautiful places on the earth. It's cold in the winters, but it's amazing up here.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. But Logan's nice too. Down there is Cache Valley.
That was a better bet though for your health, because we have on my wife's side of the family, which by the way, just tying into the this will fuse the two topics, because my wife is like this tiny half Japanese girl you wouldn't think was like a hardcore punk rocker, more hardcore than I was. She took a baseball bat to the knee at an Agnostic Front show, not Agnostic Front, Naked Aggression show, this punk rock show, and just was like, yeah, whatever. She's definitely was way more hardcore in the past than I was, but it's funny because nobody would think it meeting her because she's tiny,
I spilled a soda at a Culture Club concert once.
Yeah, that's about my level of hardcoreness was when I was into punk rock, I'd befriend a Sharp, and then they'd beat up Nazis for me, and I would just stay away. I'd be like,
you say a Sharp?
Run.
What's a Sharp, Josh?
So the time I got into punk rock, it had been, it sucks, but it's a bunch of neo-Nazis, especially in the area we were in, because we're in a lot of the shows that you'd go to would be out in Bakersfield or something, and so it's a lot of neo-Nazis took over the punk scene, and they would show up at shows, and just you'd the guys to avoid, because they'd have a wife beater and like docks with red laces, and they were just looking for trouble the second they'd go to a show. So you'd have to kind of know how to navigate that, because there was actual violence at these shows. And so for me, I was never the guy who get in the pit. I was always the guy, like I said, I'd be a friend of Sharp, which was a whole group of guys who were called themselves skinheads against racial prejudice, and they would literally, they would be the guy you want to steer clear of at a show that didn't have neo-Nazis, but if they had neo-Nazis, you'd want to be right next to them because they beat the crap out of them. And
that's such a coincidence that their name is Sharp, when that actually is what they are too. They're skinheads against, what is it?
So racial prejudice. Did you have the Straight Edge crew in your town? Yeah.
Well, that's why I was it's funny because I was huge into Minor Threat, but I also as a kid was not straight edge at all. I was a really dumb kid who did a lot of drugs in high school.
Because where I grew up, the Straight Edge, they were the ones that were fighting the Nazis.
Yeah, so the Sharps thing ties in with Straight Edge, and what's funny is Straight Edge, so the guy who started Straight Edge was that's why I was saying I was really big in DC punk, because Ian McKay started straight edge. Like he was in like anyhow, like now I'm spacing out on his
Well,
band.
you know who else fought the Nazis?
Minor Threat, sorry. So Minor Threat had a song like they started putting X's on their hands because they wanted to play all ages punk shows because they were all underage when they started their band, and all the DC clubs were like not letting minors in. So they made a deal with the club where they said, hey, if we put like an X on our hand, like, and promise we aren't going to have like alcohol, will you let us play here and let our friends in? And they were like, yeah, that'll work. So then like they wrote a couple songs about not doing drugs, and then like this whole movement grew out of it that Ian MacKaye even hated afterwards. It became straight edge. Sorry, totally rambly. What was that, Jim?
I said, you know who else fought the Nazis? My father on a battleship.
Dude, my grandpa was in the Navy in World War II.
My dad was too.
Yeah, my grandpa was a chef, so he was like feeding the guys fighting the Nazis.
My dad was a radar guy.
Oh, that's awesome. I wonder, that's interesting. I wonder if there was overlap. Like maybe they were in the same fleet.
They were in the same war.
I like the pictures of your parents, Jim. They look like real, like, you know, like 40s movie stars, you know?
You know what's funny?
Yeah, great picture.
Dad, Jim, looks like he looks like a leading man for sure in that era. Like he looks like a just like
Magnificent Seven or something.
Yeah, like one smooth operator, you know?
My dad, especially when he was older, he had a mustache. He looked like a cop or something. Like you look at him and he just had an authoritarian, just a presence, but he was a prankster. He was a joker.
Really?
So yeah, he was. One time, I'll tell you this. One time in the 50s, my mom, my dad, my aunt, and my uncle, and another couple were going to dinner at this really expensive place. It was in Orange County somewhere. It was a theater, and you walk in the theater, and it had these steps like an amphitheater but indoors, and it was a dinner theater, and you walk down to your seats, and he went there, and it was one of those typical cases where they were serving white people first. My dad was, had reservations, and they were still taking it. So finally, my dad got frustrated, and he goes, "Let's go." And he got some menus, and he walked. Oh no, I told the story wrong. My dad was standing there at and the host was already seating some other people, and this group came up and they go, McMillan, like they thought my dad worked there because the Mexican guy in a suit. So my dad grabbed some menus or whatever and goes, "Right this way," and he took them all the way down. He took them all the way down to the front of the stage, right in front of the stage, into the table, and he gave them their menus, and then he went. And then my dad said during the show, the lights went down and the show was starting, and my dad's table's over here, and they could see a group of people come in with the maitre d' and the table, and he said all he could see was the people that he sat and this new group of people going.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great story.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, he killed all kinds of Nazis, I'm sure. No.
I think that's a pretty American pursuit. I have no problem with that, that pursuit. I mean, that might not be so PC to say these days, but I have no problem with it.
I grew up a son of a fireman, so he was an LA fireman, and was in World War II. But however, my dad was Democrat and not right wing and stuff like that. So I kind of have a weird mix because a part of me totally has respect for authority and all this stuff, but then the other half of me is like, I'm not a lawbreaker as an adult, but but the other half of me is kind of like, I don't know. I'm just not. I'm not a very. I'm not conservative in some ways. In some ways, I think I am.
Yeah, I mean, I've been called a classical liberal by some people who are on the left that I know that are like way further left than I am. And like I was saying this at the top too, where it's like I like a lot of elements of capitalism, so I wouldn't want to like abandon capitalism, but I just think like social systems are nice on top of that. But it's like but it is funny because it's like my dad was a Republican. But he's, it's like interesting because it's like my mom and him had like very similar views, and like my mom is like completely anti-Trump, like cannot stand the Republican Party right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I tend to think like my father probably wouldn't have fallen in the like the weird kind of thing. But
wait,
but it is
the guy from the Celebrity Apprentice?
What's up?
You're talking about Trump, the guy from the Celebrity Apprentice?
Yeah, I don't
the guy from Home Alone 2?
Yeah, I think he's the guy. Wait, he's not in Home Alone 2 anymore, is he?
I don't know.
They took him out.
Right, I'm blocking it out the last 4 years. Like, I'm with you guys.
I like that.
I heard somebody say, this is so corny, but it's true. I heard somebody say this, and it made me think. I'm like, yes, that's actually true. He said, what if there were no parties? I know this can't happen, but what if there were? Where would you fall? Where would this guy land? Where, you know what I mean? Our beliefs would probably cross over more than we'd like to admit.
Yeah. Well, so
I mean, I've never identified with a party.
Yeah.
But if you like, I think if most people would categorize me, I'm like very progressive left, super lefty, but I don't identify myself like that because I like to take each thing as it comes. I don't think it's helpful to identify I'm a Democrat, or I'm a left, or I'm liberal. It's just not helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, how do you know who you're supposed to blindly hate?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not part of one of the
tribe,
teams.
Yeah, I tend not to get tribal, but I also like don't like making the mistake of like sort of the both sides thing that is pretty common, where like some people will be like, well, on this side and on this side, and it's like,
you're right, there's no sides, right? It's just an issue and you talk about it.
And sometimes it's also just not equivalent, when you talk about sides, where it's like, okay, I totally do not like fall into a party line.
That's great, Corey.
Oh, that's hilarious. It's beautiful. I don't fall into the party line, but I also don't want to be shy about, like what I actually believe. I had a friend who put it really well recently, where he was talking about how people who say like I'm not that political are kind of speaking out of privilege, because everything's political, like whether you like it or not. And so just even being able to say I'm not political is sort of a very like privileged political position to be in, because for a lot of people, like they don't really get a choice in being political.
Interesting.
Their lives are in threat, like, and so it's like, it was an interesting take. That makes me more comfortable being open about what I think, but at the same time, I definitely think it's dangerous when you like. I find it very dangerous when I meet someone who like wholeheartedly will be like on the party line on everything, because that just becomes like weird cult like. I don't know,
kind of boring.
Hey Corey, did I forget to draw a chain?
I'm just going to pretend like the camera's cropping that up. You can add the chain.
I have a question on that drawing.
Or we could recycle a chain, perhaps. I
have a question on that drawing.
What's up?
There's a little blue tint on the right boob, on my left, but the guy's right boob. See that blue tint along the left? And then there's the yellow along the right.
Right.
Did you draw that, Jim?
I did.
Nice. Well done.
Lighting effects. Look at that.
Yeah, I like that it's rimlit to bring out and accentuate the the foreground figure.
Speaking of political parties, I'm going to start a group of fascists who wear really bright colors, and we're going to be called the Neon Nazis.
The neon?
Neon Nazis.
We're going to have
gay fascists
and glow sticks, and it'll be very
streamers.
We're going to help people.
I always liked your. Did I read this wrong?
Required to help people.
I always found it funny that like the Swizzle Stick Army is like seems like they're kind of Nazis. Like they have, they have like, but it's also hilarious and funny, like just the way that they seem kind of unaware of like what they're promoting.
So they're kind of obviously very based on craft work.
Yeah,
but
totally.
They're uber European, and I never say what country they're from. They're just uber it's kind of weird. The Swizzle Stick Army. Yeah.
I just think it's funny that, like their name sounds like it could be referring to like a swastika, and then they wear red armbands, but they also seem like really oblivious of it. Like, I don't know. I want to see them as cartoon characters again, and it definitely reminds me of Kraftwerk for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I have one of the films that I haven't done yet is called the Swizzle Stick Invasion, and it's where they come to America and they play this little southern town. So I'll do that one day.
It's hilarious.
Hey Jim, did you like that tech jargon I sent to you?
Yeah, so Paul's helping me do some research for the next film that I'm going to do.
That was stuff I heard literally minutes before.
I wrote I saved it. It's so good.
Okay, so I need to know a little bit about the tech jargon. What is the tech jargon from?
Just like, IT, like computer stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, because he's got a character that's kind of a computer nerd.
Well, I want, without saying the name of the next thing I'm going to do, I also want Josh to play a cool pastor.
Oh yeah, that's great. It would be great for that.
I would find that very fun.
Yeah, but you know what? And honestly,
I could totally picture that.
Yeah. I honestly am not. It's not a film that's making fun of religion, or there. You could go anywhere and see 10 versions of that all the time. That's so overdone. I'm not about making fun of religion, but I'm about making fun of everything.
Well, that's the thing is like any religion. This is just my take on it, but it's like any religion or belief system or like anything that can't be made fun of, it should be like the scariest thing in the world to people. Like, I feel like if I don't know, like if people are afraid of being teased or like having a parody or something, like I feel like that's really dangerous. Because it's like everything should be on the table.
Talk to Salman Rushdie.
Yeah.
Speaking of my next film, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's like to me that seems like one of those things of like, I don't know. Life of Brian's funny. If somebody is like so fragile in their beliefs that they can't watch Life of Brian and laugh, like, I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, the next thing I'm doing, it has a character that's. I mean, I wanted to do like the cool pastor, the guy kind of have his leg up on the, like that. He's talking, sleeves rolled up, earring. But I mean, I think you'd be perfect for that, Josh. Perfect for it.
That's good.
But
I dig it.
Has the rock band at the church.
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah. Being the guy who's like, so you're into rap? I got some rap music for you.
Yeah. We just don't give Stryper enough credit these days, right?
Stryper really was an innovative take on metal, and I think the leotards they were wearing were really more influential than people give it credit for.
Stryper, form of a bumblebee.
That's it's so funny. There's so many bands like in that scene that are terrifying and horrible.
Yeah.
I guess you basically have like, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of feel like anytime stuff is like in that genre, it just doesn't tend to be that good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Josh, I don't know how you can draw and talk like this at the same time.
Well, I'm not doing the best job today. I usually
Yeah,
do.
we ruined him.
I've been getting distracted though, but it's fun.
Yeah, I would be completely. All my drawings would be wrong. You know, all the details that I'm supposed to have.
I want a live feed on Corey's screen, and I want an electrode that I have. When Corey stops working, I can press a button and shocks him. Makes him continue to work on something.
Keep working.
Wait, Corey, can you make that what you're working on like large on the screen? Because I'm curious about that panel. That looks awesome. I don't know if I've seen that yet.
That's a real car. I'm gonna share that. That's if you go look up Natasha Adams, she's one of my friends on Instagram.
She has that car
based on her car. She has a Lexus that she turned into an off-road vehicle.
What? I'm looking it up right now.
Terror of Tucson?
Yeah, hers doesn't have that. Hers doesn't have chains or Terror of Tucson on it. But
does it have the stripes?
Yes. It's a Lexus, and it's got tires like that, and it's really awesome.
Are those studs on the tires?
No, it's supposed to be. It's writing, but you just can't tell.
Oh, I love it though.
That would be cool. That's a good idea. Studs.
Yeah, I don't know if you could pull off tire studs because it probably popped the
tire studs would be a really good name for an auto body shop.
Yeah, or it's like, you know, a bunch of dudes who wear tires in a band.
Shirtless dudes, and like OSHA shuts them down because they get like all the time.
Another fake band is Tire Studs.
Tire Studs, Side Curtis, and what was the other ones?
Was there a specific group of dudes?
Guy,
specific group of dudes.
God.
A specific group of dudes.
A specific group of dudes is the band that you know, they break up and then they form like a band with like two of the members called Tire Studs.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's just great.
Okay, go ahead.
There's another shot of the close-up that has smoke on the tires. I don't know if this one has it or not.
He's going to peel out? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he takes off.
All right. So I am on the second to last.
My brother he's a car guy, you know. When he was young, he was in high school, he had this car that he put together. It was like a Comet and do you remember that Comet? It was a mix between a Comet and another car. And you know, it was all bondoed and everything, but he had this thing on it. He called it the Slickomizer. And he had a tire pump that he could push down on it, and it would pump water onto his back wheels so that he could peel out, you know. He called it the Slickomizer.
Hey, Corey.
Yeah.
So on this shot, there'll be some talking before anything happens with the car moving. I mean, taking off or anything.
Yeah.
And maybe
Maverick.
The car could be vibrating because the engine will be running. But hey, when you move the tires, if I had a thought, what if we had him back up, like at the end of his spiel after he's done talking and stuff? What if he backs up out of frame?
Like reverses out of this shot?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That might be cool. Because then the other shot is just an overhead of him going forward, but you can't tell where he's going really. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a little hard to follow the animatic at this point. I was too sick to do the show today, so I'm kind of animating in blind here.
Okay. Well, just make sure you leave some space for him to say some stuff before he does anything.
How long does he say stuff?
Just give me like 10 seconds or so. And well, he doesn't say that much stuff. He only says like his goodbyes.
Cool.
He says, "For I have come here thou to see."
Okay, I'm gonna do. Here's some rotation on the car. Let me pause the.
Oh my goodness, we're at 3-hour mark. I'm going to take a 20-second break. I will be right back, but keep that going, Corey, because it looks awesome. Oh, dude, no way.
That's too much.
How do you do this magic, Corey?
I'm just using a wiggle expression.
Yeah, but it's just kind of amazing. Like Jim will be like, "Hey, can you make that car like rumble a little bit?" And then it's like in 5 seconds it's happening. That's amazing.
Make it bounce. Make it bounce.
Bounce that car. Bounce it.
Check this out though. We'll have it a little. I'm gonna give him a little bit of some pistons. So let's do another wiggle expression. And we'll slow this one down and then have it go 35. So now it'll go up and down too. There we go. Oh, hold on. My computer's going. There we go. I gotta stick him in it. What I should do is have it be like, like lift up in the front and then drop in the back.
The kit.
No. I'm just gonna have it start with a real thundering, like it's just like he's revving it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he takes off, he could take off forward, or he could take off backwards, or if you wanted to give me both.
Well, you've got the reverse. You've got the overhead shot, so I could back him up out of this shot, and then I could start the overhead shot with him backing up and turning, and then
that'd be great.
Forward.
Yeah, because that's the last shot. That's the only shot. We don't have him going down the road anymore.
Okay,
that would be great. Yeah.
As
long as he has a spot at the front where he can say some stuff.
Yeah, I'll lose this. I haven't looked at this yet, but this looks fun. I'm excited to do this. Did you give me multiple layers of smoke on this Photoshop file?
I think I just gave one, but it's not cut off though. It's all self-contained. So
okay.
You can expand it. So.
I'll just duplicate it a few times and then throw some puppet pins on it and wiggle it around. It'll look like smoke.
That's great. The artwork's so good.
I'm really stoked. It's so funny though, like from dipping into animation very briefly this year for like the first time. Like I had done some assets for clients, but like never really actually got in there with the mechanics of it and made stuff move. And just having a brief taste of it, I've realized I need to stay away from animation as much as possible because it's super addictive. And I feel like comics alone are like so much work, like adding animation to it. It's just, it's amazing, but it's fun, man. It's cool to like work through, stuff where you're like, I don't know how to make this happen. And then have to kind of think through it and find out like little cheats,
I totally out of this project it's like learning another language, and I feel like after this is done, I think it's going to be a positive thing looking back at it. But yeah, like I said, my goal is not to murder Corey with stress.
I thought like that was your goal.
Well, at first it was. Then I realized he has to finish first. Oh.
So, I am really eager to see this though and see how it all pans out because it's been fun to watch you guys build it. And Breaking the Chains is a good show. If anyone's watching this in retrospect and they're like 3 hours into the stream for some reason, definitely check that out. I did notice like my subscriptions jumped up a lot lately. I don't know where that came from, but
it's because Corey and I were on the show.
Yeah, I think it was from like Jim Lujan and Corey Kerr guest starring.
All those secret Kiss fans.
So, trying to think. Okay, this is gonna work. I'm just trying to think of the expression here. What right now, like what's like an album you listen to continually and are kind of like digging lately? I don't want to do like a top 5 albums kind of discussion, because I always feel like for people who like music, like that's a nightmare.
Let me look on Spotify. I'll tell you right now.
Okay, yeah. I'll tell you one that's going to shock you guys.
Shock? Like shock and awe? Like
just shock, given that you guys know who I am.
Oh my goodness!
I've been listening to a lot of Hollywood Undead. You guys listen to Undead?
Wait, who?
Hollywood Undead.
Hollywood Undead? No, I do not know. Explain.
Never mind. It's not shocking then.
Who is that?
They're just like a really trashy white rap group. Like, I don't know. They crack me up.
Okay, yeah. Josh, I'm gonna read you recently played on Spotify, and these are ones I've actually. I'd never really listened to the full album, but I was listening to Billy Idol's Rebel Yell album. So that was one. Another one was Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. I've heard that a million times. Aladdin Sane by David Bowie. And Floating Through Space, which is just music. And the last one is the Bella Twins podcast. That's what I listen to.
I do love podcasts, man.
For me, it's let's see, Rufusized, Ask Rufus, Rufus featuring Shaka Khan.
The Roof is on Fire.
Rufus on Fire.
and Numbers was a good one too. So.
Nice.
I've just been listening to all that Shaka Khan for the last week or so.
What if Josh goes, here's mine, Screwdriver with White Warrior.
So like lately, I don't know why, I just like I've been like listening to Gangstar, like My Steez, like Moment of Truth, that album. Like it's like weird because of like I don't know why in the last week or so I've been like super digging it. And like I love that album anyway, but for some reason that's been on rotation a lot lately.
What about It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back? That's a great album.
Yeah. I don't know that album. What is that album?
Public Enemy.
Oh, okay.
It's so good. Public Enemy had like 3 or 4 really, 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 really good albums in a row.
Sweet.
A few months ago, I watched an episode of Joe Rogan, and he had Willie D from the Ghetto Boys.
The Ghetto Boys. That was such a good episode.
And he was on there with Mike Judge.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I was like, what kind of random coupling is that?
Well, Mike Judge is a big Ghetto Boys fan. They were in
Office Space, right? Yeah.
Mike Judge is from Texas.
So didn't Mike Judge? So I think somebody was telling me about like a TV series he did where he got into like the origins of funk, and then like also
it's Tales from the Tour Bus.
Have you guys watched that at all?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really good.
He gets into like outlaw country too, or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
It's real stories from the tour bus. It's really well done.
He left his arm.
With James and Prince. It's really good.
His arm came off.
What happened?
Attached.
Yeah, that's great.
Be attached to the car.
That's not safe.
There it goes.
I'm gonna have to check that out at some point because it sounds pretty cool. Is it on? What's it on? Like, is it on Netflix?
Oh boy, it's on YouTube. You can watch some of them on YouTube. I think it's on Showtime.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check out YouTube then. That's cool though. I'd be curious. I used to be like really like into like I do miss like the era of like music videos because like even like the behind the music stuff that was on VH1 was like so addictive back in the day. Those were like the best. Like even if it was a band you hated, it's like it would just be so intriguing to like watch this band kind of collapse or like go through like the dramas of rock and roll.
So hey, speaking of collapse, my battery is literally going to die any second right now.
Well, you have hung with us till like 3:30 in the morning, so thank you for joining us, Jim.
That is crazy. I'm glad I'm off tomorrow.
Yeah.
My wife and kids are going to be getting up here pretty soon.
Holy crap, Paul!
Oh, what time did you go to bed at night?
Oh, probably 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got some sleep in. But.
Yeah, I got a little power nap in before doing this.
Now that's a last thing I'll say. That's another great name for a band.
Another power nap?
Oh, just power nap.
Oh, okay. Nice. I like that. Power nap is like that's definitely like a people over 40 cover band.
Yeah. Last thing I'll tell you guys for the night. Go YouTube Osmond's Crazy Horses and then send me a thank you later.
Oh, I was going to tell you, Jim, look up Betty Davis with a Y, Betty with a Y. She was married to Miles Davis. That's where her name comes from.
Oh, no, I know who that is. I know who that is.
Yeah, she's really funky.
Yeah. Okay.
I am kind of excited about that.
All right. I have heard of her. Now that you say that. Miles Davis's wife, yeah. Not as funky as Crazy Horses by the Osmonds.
Yeah, right, the Osmonds, yeah.
It's their basically it's their satanic rock song.
Okay, funk question. Who wrote the song Get the Funk Out of My Face? Do you guys remember? I can't remember. I always get that song stuck in my head and I forget the artist.
Get the funk out of my face. Get the
funk right out of my face.
I don't know.
Okay, now I gotta look that up.
Yeah.
Brothers Johnson. Brothers Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. I love funk. It's kind of great. Depending. I don't like Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I don't care what they say about you. Just be good to me, okay? People I was talking about. Okay.
Funkin' now.
Mm-hmm.
You
guys have a great night. Remember Gym TV this Friday night.
That sounds fun. I got to stop by because I stopped in on a couple of them.
It's so long. It goes for so like this show. It goes for so long that you can just pop in and out. You don't have to stay the whole time.
I do like it, and it is fun. It reminds me of it's like a mix of like a dance party and like classic MTV
and weird commercials.
Yes.
So, but all right, you guys have a great night, Corey. That is fantastic. You're doing such a great job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that looks incredible.
It does, man. You're awesome, man. Thank you.
I didn't realize I was still full screen.
You're living your life full screen, baby.
I sure am.
All right, good night.
Bye. See you, Jim. All right, anybody who was watching that and interested in Jim, go check out Jim Lujan on YouTube and check out his brilliant cartoons. And check out Breaking the Chains, which he does with Corey Kerr. No, that looks great, Corey. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Throwing this back. Boom.
There's your pencils. Hey, so Josh, your pencils are so detailed. Like they could be, I penciled page 85, but it's like it's a done page 85.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it a different way this time so that there's less work at the end.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you more of my pencils.
because usually my thumbnails look like this, where it's like I'll just draw like a dude and be like, okay, it's gonna be like this, and he's gonna say,
Yeah.
Hi, and that's it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's a thing back here, and
Right.
like I have to decipher it later, and then I'll do tighter roughs. But I'm trying to kind of fuse thumbnails and roughs in one.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I don't know if that's crazy or not. I do think it's going to save me a crap load of work though when it
You go to ink it.
finals.
Like I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, do it. Do it. Corey, I like that you're right next to a skeleton that's eating a hamburger.
Oh yeah.
But he's like a really hungry skeleton because he just keeps cycling through eating it.
Just keeps doing it over and over and over again.
I think I should get a hamburger.
Today,
You guys see that?
Oh, here, let's throw it up.
Let's see.
Boom.
There we go.
So like, I mean, this doesn't even look like the characters here, you know.
Yeah.
I don't worry about that. I just, like you said, I'm just trying to throw it down so that we know where it is,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then, but yours looks so finished, you know.
I don't know, man. Those look pretty tight.
Oh,
They look nice. I mean, they look like boards, like storyboards or something.
huh.
Yeah.
Well, yours got shading and they're beautiful artwork in and of themselves.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah. Isn't that the way it always goes?
Yeah, I think it's hard to see our own stuff, like
Yeah.
Like my wife is like really quick at illustration and really like good at turning things around in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And she never really sees it. And it's funny because like most people who see her draw are just like, holy crap, like she's so good. But she never really sees that either,
Yeah.
But I always like envy that ability because I can kind of draw from my head, but I usually need a ton of reference, like for like final products, So
Cool.
It'd be fun to do a different book at some point that's like looser. Like there's a I don't know if you guys have seen like Dave McKean's like Cages. It's like
I don't think so.
super inspiring. If you can get a hold of it, it's definitely a book worth owning. It's like this giant like volume. It's like huge, But he's mostly known for he did like the covers for like the Sandman.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, I know that guy.
Yeah, so like most of what he's known for is like this weird kind of collage-y painting, like typographic play stuff. But he's also like a great cartoonist in his own right, and he did this book called Cages, and it's done in this like loose like French line style. It's like one of the most inspiring works, but it's also one of those books where you can tell he did it very confidently and quickly, but it's just so solid, the execution of it. I'd love to do something like that, but I don't know if I have the ability that he has.
Yeah. I always kind of start off with, in a style and then end up, falling back into what I always do by page 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I like the idea of I definitely think whenever I'm done with this though, I'm gonna need something different.
Yeah.
For like
how many pages is this one, do you think?
So this is page 92 that I'm thumbing. So total it's probably gonna be another 120 pages or something.
120 total.
Yeah, 120 to 125. Might be a little longer.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a bit of a beast, but
yeah,
it's doable.
You're going at a great clip, though. I mean, I assume when you post them on Instagram, I think it's on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of, you're posting them as you get them done.
Yeah, I'm trying. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up the pace, but I'm hoping. I don't know. I feel like I'm really slow though.
I don't know. So you're gonna ink them then after this?
After this, it's I'm gonna rule out the panel borders and lay out the typography.
Okay.
Get a bunch more photo reference and assemble all that, and then do pencils, like tight pencils, and then do inks.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's kind of a beast.
Right. See, I'll take that one that I did there, and I'll probably ink. I'll do pencils on the characters to get, because I want to make sure I get a likeness of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'll just ink it from there. But my backgrounds are a lot less. They're a lot more cartoony than. There's not much to them. I want to do a little more backgrounds in this one than I've done in the past, but even in that, my backgrounds are pretty sparse.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The like for me, that was a conscious choice. Like with the first book was like I hate backgrounds.
Right.
I like drawing characters, so I kind of forced myself. But I've seen in your comics, it's like you have some pretty detailed backgrounds and stuff,
Well, what I like to do is do one or two to set the stage, and then abandon it from the rest of the scene,
Yeah.
And do just the characters. But this one I want to have a little bit more backgrounds.
You know what might be an interesting challenge? Maybe I'll try this for the book after this. It would be interesting to try to do a comic that's all backgrounds and no characters. I would hate that. Like, I love
that. What are you, like a ascetic or somebody that tortures themselves?
Possibly. I don't know. It just might be an interesting challenge to try to make that work,
Yeah.
Huh. That could also just be complete insanity.
Right. We could have like trees talk to each other and buildings, interact.
Yeah, or just like, like a poem or something. I don't know, like something kind of, I don't know. Yeah. I loved David Chelsea has this crazy theory on first person comics that I always found really compelling. Where he was saying if you wanted to do like a real authentic slice of life story, you'd actually have no view of the narrator. Like it would actually all be first person perspective.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be like you'd never really see
the character, right,
hands and stuff, which I thought was like such a, I don't know, that would be really hard to make work.
That'd be interesting, right? Because like my graphic novels, they're Detective Perez, right? And he's in every single page. He's on every single page, pretty much,
Yeah.
But to draw it without him at all, right?
Yeah, wouldn't that be
because it is the first person. It's told first person as well. He narrates it. But that'd be crazy.
Be an interesting paneling device,
Yeah. Yeah. Would you always have like you're seeing it through binoculars? How they have the the black around the corners.
But then again, it might also be kind of boring, right? Because it could be like a first person shooter kind of vibe where it's like, is this a video game or a comic? But yeah, I don't know. I do think like that was a compelling thought. Yeah, how long does it take you to complete your graphic novels? Like,
oh, those. I mean, I did those a long time ago, and it took me. The first one took me 2.5 years. The second one took me a year. So once I got the process down, Yeah, because they're like over 200 pages, but each page is a lot more. It's a lot simpler than yours. Like for example, the one you're working on there.
Yeah.
But they're primarily like 3 frames.
Okay. That's still pretty impressive though, like for time, like I think.
And then, like I said, it's more cartoony than yours.
Yeah.
But there's a guy in Chicago. His name was Tim Broderick, and he did a couple of graphic novels that kind of inspired me to do it. And he's a fan of like the Maltese Falcon, that kind of that hard-boiled, old-fashioned detective type story.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I was going for, but my own little flavor of it. So,
by the way, I want to be really clear that I hate Slipknot. It's just this slice of life comic, and this character was actually wearing a Slipknot t-shirt. But I actually just I can't stand that band.
That's funny. I'm clueless on like most of what you guys are talking about, and the music.
Well, with that one, don't feel bad for being clueless, because it's not really anything worth being clued in on. It's
yeah, you and Jim go deep into what I consider obscure, but I'm sure it's not. But my musical knowledge is so limited.
It sounds like you got your jam, though. I think everybody's got kind of their own interests, because it sounds to me like if you and I talked about funk or soul, you might actually have more knowledge than me for sure on those.
Maybe a little bit, but
I don't know.
Probably not a whole lot.
And then Corey's got a whole wealth of musical interests that are a little different than me. Corey, what was the band you were telling us we'd be weirded out by? I'm curious what it is. What kind of music do they play?
It's rap.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you did mention.
What was it called?
I'm Dead. I don't recommend them. They're pretty gross. They're really misogynistic, and it's old school. But I don't know. There's something about it that just is so dang funny. They're not trying to be funny, they're trying to be all hardcore, but it just makes me laugh. I don't know what it is.
Okay, I can kind of see that then, it's almost like a humor listen.
It slaps too. It's got good beats and everything as well. But yeah, it's fun. They're pretty hooky. It'll earworm into your head and stay there. But yeah, kind of all over the place. I'll do a little bit of that. I'll listen to Tech Nine every once in a while. And he's just this guy that. Do you guys know Tech Nine? No. He's listen to the song Worldwide Choppers, and like that. But he's a rapper, and his whole gimmick is he's the Micro Machine Man, where he just does everything really fast.
Oh, okay. So he's got that speed style.
Yeah. And then my go-tos are Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, Sugar Cult, kind of the early 2000 pop punk revolution. I like those a lot. And then I'll hit up some old school stuff every once in a while. My daughter was had a crisis of self-identity, and she's I'm dressing like a little girl. And I was well, what do you want to dress like? And she's I want to wear rock t-shirts like mom has. And my wife's really into classic rock. So I was
classic rock's great, man.
Well, I was okay, well, let's, you can wear whatever you want, but you can't be a poser. So let's listen to some of these bands and we'll see who you like. And so my wife bought her a Journey t-shirt, and we tried to listen to Journey, and I freaking hate Journey so much. They're so boring.
You hate Journey? I like Journey.
So boring.
I ironically like Journey, but I like Journey.
Yeah, see, I like Journey. I honestly think they're great,
Yeah, I do too. I love
it's so
cool. There's also
need a nap. like they'll throw on something like Journey just because it's just like pointless, soft noise in the back.
That's so funny.
I love
it. That must be how I felt about Neil Diamond when I was young, like you were talking about, Josh. Like when I was young, it was Neil Diamond was just like, oh come on, just like Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond, like oh my god. But now that I got older and Neil Diamond is just so cheesy that I like it.
Dude, that's the thing about like Journey. Like I can get into that. There's one of the funniest music videos you will ever see is the one day love will find you, break those, because the whole video literally like is like close-ups of them just like this.
Yeah.
The camera and like
no, see like I see that and I'm like, wow, that's really good.
There's
like,
also
honestly, sincerely, like, man, they're really into that. They're rocking it. Yeah, Journey.
Oh my gosh!
Corey's just like, oh no.
There's a stupid movie by Trey Parker and Matt Stone called Basketball, and I love it. And they to psych people out when they're trying to like shoot a basket. They go Steve Perry, and the people are always like thrown off by it. But yeah, I'm kind of there. So what did she end up digging though? What was her jam?
So she likes the Ramones.
Nice.
That's cool.
And so we got her some of that. A couple AC/DC songs. She was into that.
Yeah, their song is good.
We're kind of limited by like our local Hot Topic, which doesn't have its on, but she and I are both really into Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy, and so like all of my kids, we're just like,
well, like dance. Corey?
What's that?
How old is she?
She's 11.
Oh, that's fun.
It's a good age to like. You could introduce her to the Clash.
Yeah.
That's
fun stuff. That you guys like, can share that interest.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Amazing.
She's just now realizing like most of the things that she has enjoyed, I've introduced her to it, except because I'm her dad, I'm not cool. And so like every time I try to introduce her to something, she's like, quit trying to force me to. And I'm like, I'm not trying to force you. I just know you really well. And I know you'd like this.
Yeah.
She's just now realizing that like, Harry Potter and Gregor the Underlander and what is she really into right now? It's the one about Percy Jackson. Like I was the one that was like, hey, you would like this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with music. I'm like, you just got to give it a shot. And so she's, for whatever reason, it's just barely like in the last couple of months kind of come around to like, yeah, I'm like, a lot of the TV shows, I'm like Gravity Falls and a lot of that type of stuff that she's like super into. I think she forgets that I'm the one that is like showing.
Yeah. You kind of got to just ease them into it or just.
My hope is to like, I was trying to think of how to get my kid into good music, and I was realizing like I might have to recreate like the Satanic Panic for him. And just be like put a bunch of really cool records like in his room and put them on like a shelf and be like, don't touch this, because if you listen to this, it's going to open a gateway to hell.
Yeah.
Don't go near this. This is dangerous stuff. And then just like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to like reverse engineer what got me into rock and roll.
Yeah. Hide it somewhere in the house.
Yeah.
Where he's going to find it.
Yeah, and then if I catch him with it, just be like, "What is this? You this is dangerous. You can't listen to this."
Yeah.
Like I just was trying to think, because I fear like otherwise my son's rebellion is going to be like to listen to like popular music.
Right. Yeah.
And be like, this is great.
Journey's awesome. Listen to them, Dad. They rock. Look at that one video. Like Steve Perry's really rocking it.
I kind of like that video. I don't know if
you like it for a different reason.
But yeah, also listen to like Taylor Swift and stuff, and so there's a little bit of that rebellion where I'm like, she's awful. anyway, she likes her. So there's still some of that.
So funny.
I do feel like she wrote. It was the person she collaborated with to write. Like what was it? I can't remember, but I feel like she actually on her last album collaborated with like a pretty legit musician. I can't remember.
Well, I just don't understand. I mean, she's fine. Whatever. She's pretty boring, but like I don't understand why she is like one of the biggest artists that has ever walked the face of the earth.
Yeah,
she's one of the.
I don't understand.
I mean, like it's like there are so many other people that have done what she's done better than she's done it, and I just don't get why she caught on and everybody else didn't.
Yeah, isn't that something? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's just
like her voice is quite unremarkable, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Is like she's not bad.
Her songs are sort of campy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like they're not good, but I am trying to remember who wrote Folklore with her because I'm not a fan, but
I can look it up.
I feel like she collaborated with like a legit, really good musician, and because I don't listen to Taylor Swift, I'm kind of forgetting. So was it
Folklore?
Oh yeah, okay. So there's this guy who co-wrote her latest album named Aaron Brooking Dessner, and he's in the National, and the National's like incredible.
Oh really?
Like if you're ever curious, like look up Fake Empire by the National. It's just a good intro to like what they do, kind of weird indie, like incredible stuff.
This sounds super interesting. There's a mashup of Taylor Swift and Tool. I gotta check it out.
Dude, Tool is one of those bands that bums me out constantly because I really liked their first few albums, and then I feel like progressively, while they get like technically, like they do weird stuff with music that's so hard to play and timing, but they get progressively worse and worse as a band. And I'm like, I want to hear like the stuff where like Maynard was talking about like drowning LA and stuff, and like there was a hook, and I don't know, there was a time where that was a really incredible band is all I'm saying. I feel like they haven't put out
they let you down.
That last album was not good.
I think my only reference to Tool is Beavis and Butthead had one of their claymation animation music videos on at one point in time in the 90s. I think that's the only time I've heard a Tool song.
They were not bad. Like initially, they were kind of proggy, very like math rock mixed with a little bit of metal, but definitely I wouldn't call them metal.
Math rock.
Math rock is like crazy though. Like if you get into like legit math rock, that stuff is insane. Like one of my favorite math rock bands. The only problem with like hardcore math rock is you can only do like, at least for me, I can only do like one song, and then I can't like have it on cycle or rotation all the time. But there's a band called Dillinger Escape Plan. they're really hardcore. It's a great band name. It's one of my favorite band names.
I'll have to check that out.
But they're just like, they just do weird stuff where it's like impossible to play, but it's like mathematically like, so the guitarists are kind of doing these weird like math algorithms on their guitars.
Oh, really?
I feel like many musicians like math rock. Like it's everybody that I've ever heard talk about like prog or math rock is like a guitarist who's really into music theory.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody else is like, yeah, that sounds weird.
So that's the thing is like math rock's like, to hardcore math rock is kind of like the really crazy jazz where it almost loses the, like, even like when you listen to like Miles Davis, there's still that like underlying tempo and stuff, but there's jazz that goes way crazier where it's almost impossible to listen to unless you're like a music major, right? And then people are like, "Oh, they did this thing," and you're like, "I can't understand any of this. It just sounds like nonsense to me." You know? Yeah, like that, but just hardcore. So it's like, but then they'll repeat it, and you're like, "What was that? That was nuts."
Math, right?
They sampled the Munsters TV theme. You know, I get excited about that. I think there's a Panic at the Disco song where they go into like this riff, and I'm like, that's the Munsters, and my wife was like, what? And I'm like, I had to show her. Anyway, it was really funny. I can look that
up. It is pretty awesome. So let me
the smoke is looking great there, Corey.
Yeah.
It'll get there. I'm wondering if I need to.
Can I make a bad pun?
Absolutely.
You know what they say about smoke? Where there's smoke, there's tire. That's my dad joke for the day.
Well done. Well, guys, I think I'm going to get ready for work.
Yeah, this actually works out because I have just finished my thumbnail. So
that looks fantastic, man. Can you do like a big screen real quick?
Yeah, show us the. Oh, which one? Me? Oh,
yeah.
So let's see. I'll show this. Let me see if I can pull you guys. Nope. I was trying to. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the
first frame is the one that I said nice face, right?
Yeah.
That was like yesterday.
Yeah, that was kind of early in the morning. So this took a little too long for like the simplicity of the page, but I got a little distracted, and I appreciate actually the conversation because it helped me push through it because I did not feel like doing this today. And like, so one of the reasons I do this this show is just to kind of push through and have like a goal to kind of get these things accomplished. So I really appreciate it. You guys joining. Paul Pate, check out his art. It's pretty amazing. Paul, where can people check out your art? What's your URL?
paulpate.com.
Yes. And then Corey Kerr, this is a mysterious one too. Corey, where can everybody check out your art?
CoreyKerr.com.
All right. And then also, when you guys watch this, if you're watching at this point, please check out the Indie Review Show. It's pretty cool. We just launched it, Corey and I, and we're going to be reviewing a new a comic that inspired us, an indie comic or indie piece of art that inspires our work. And the first episode is on the IRSagency.com, and I have no idea how we got that URL, but we did, and it works. So anyhow, thanks. Also, thanks, Jake. And I feel like I'm gonna probably kill or mispronounce that last name, but Jake Tvister, who just joined us in the chats, welcome, and yeah, it's fun to have. Thanks to everybody else who joined in the chats and hopped in on the stream, and yeah, I guess we will see you guys.
Thanks for having me on, Josh and Corey. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Paul, I appreciate it. I hope we didn't keep you up too long, though. So
you kept me up long enough. So here I'm gonna go grab a coffee and start off. So,
got it. It's spoken perfect. Twister. Okay, Twister. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, cool. Paul, have a good cup of coffee. Corey, thanks for. Let's show what you did real quick before, because I want to see that too. Look at that. That's smoke. That's going to make surrender, though, right?
Visual expression to the smoke, and then I'll get the tires turning, but we'll go.
That's so cool.
And I'll probably have the opacity kind of go in and out a little bit, so it's less obvious that it's 3 layers. But
you're a magician. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know one trick. It just works really well.
Well, it's cool to see that trick, and thank you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out, and I'll see you guys on Artcasters, which is tonight, and yeah, it should be good. So
have a good one, guys.
See you guys.
See ya.